Hello and welcome along to another episode of the Endless Celts Podcast. I'm joined by Gavin and Francis. How are we doing tonight, guys?
All good, all good. I'm still reeling for the news about that press conference. Did you see it between Donald Trump and Zelensky?
I seen me bits and pieces yet.
I've never seen world leaders talk like that, like publicly. Like that should be kept behind closed doors. But I didn't know what to make it, man. At one point, I thought it was premeditated. It looked like an ambush for the White House.
Aye.
And Zelensky's got back in the motor and left the White House. It's absolute drama. I'm sure social media is buzzing for it right now, but I don't know, man.
Well, to be honest with you, I only seen bits and pieces. Channel 4 News was in the background earlier, and I suddenly turned round because I was like, what's going on there? It was like so weird for, as you say, two world leaders talking like that, but I felt like Donald Trump was really disrespectful. But I think there's a wee bit of, listen, I'm no expert, but I think there's a wee bit of needle between the two because he's refused Trump 2 favours previously. What they were, I can't remember, but very weird. But listen, we'll no delve too much into that. How are you getting on, Fry?
All fine. I feel like I need, at the end of this podcast, I'm going to be going on Twitter and things like that just to try and see this because I've totally missed all that.
It's totally wild, by the way. I mean, I don't want to say I'm a Trump supporter. I wouldn't go as far as that, but I've came round a wee bit to Trump's way on certain things. But that today was what I seen. It was totally wild, and as Gavin says, a bit of an ambush for the White House, definitely.
But we see just kind of sticking to it, but on a humorous side, I don't know if you've there's a lot of folk clipped up sort of things. Elon Musk, he does like wee speeches, and they've like clipped it up with like guys for the office and that, like the American office, doing very similar type of actions during speeches and things like that. It's absolutely brilliant. There's one where like, see how like I think it's at the winning thing, the sort of winning where Trump won, and he's like doing this on the table and stuff. There's an episode where Dwight Schrute does a speech and he's doing that and like does his hands like this. It's quite good.
Aye,
quite good if you can come across.
Where will you get that on YouTube or something like?
I get them on like YouTube and Instagram and things like that.
It's quite magic.
Just clip. It's just like I've seen this clip before, and then they show like Elon Musk doing something, and then suddenly skips to like an episode for The Office.
Right. See, that's well. To be honest, we probably folk will laugh. The original Office, I could never get into, and then they brought the American Office out, and I thought it was even worse. I don't know. Did you ever watch it, Gavin?
Jesus, man.
No, I never kind of get into it, but see what I will admit to sometimes. Whenever I watch something, there have been occasions when I take an instant disliking to it, but then I give it a second try, and I really enjoyed it. Like that one, that program about the Rupert Murdoch Empire. I forget what it's called. Empire? No, the Rupert Murdoch Empire. They made that a drama series about. And at first I didn't like it, and then I went back to it. I thought it was really, really funny. But no, I've never really taken to The Office. Ricky Gervais is a bit of a kind of Marmite character for me.
I don't get me wrong, I quite like Ricky Gervais. I like his stand-up and stuff like that, and I have liked other shows that he's done, but I just couldn't get into that at all. And then I know you like the American Office, Franny, but it just wasn't for me. But listen. We'll get into the podcast now. That was a nice wee digress, if you like. Welcome along to all the viewers as well. Who we got in the comments? We've got Red Scotland, P. McLaughlin, Brown Warrior, Irishman 1916, Plunge McNugget. Welcome along, everybody. Get involved in the comments. Obviously, you have your wee chats out with us, but get involved and obviously hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because it helps with us with the algorithm. I think that's the jargon. I don't know how it works, but a wee like would be much appreciated. But we'll get into the the podcast itself. Gavin will come to yourself first. Obviously, we played Aberdeen on Tuesday night, I think it was. I felt like it wasn't a brilliant performance. I've heard people saying it wasn't a 5-1 game. I think I was struggling to argue against that on the evidence of the game, but how did you feel? Sort of brief overview of the game, if you like.
Well, I was at the game and I felt it was a bit of a strange performance. I felt that both teams made a lot of mistakes. Obviously, whenever you put 5 past Aberdeen, then that's fantastic, because let's not forget they are still third in the table. But it felt like we made a lot of mistakes and Aberdeen just weren't good enough to capitalise on it. But when Aberdeen did make mistakes, that's when our quality shone through. There was a lot of unforced errors for Celtic, and the one kind of really obvious thing was the press from Aberdeen. You remember back to whenever Aberdeen visited Parkhead earlier on in the season, we were up 2-0 at half time, and then they scored another 2 goals in the second half to draw the game, and there was still moments where Aberdeen could have won back at Parkhead earlier on in the season. They showed a similar threat, that they were definitely capable of scoring. Like Joe Hart at one point, sorry, I don't mean to go into like specifics, but we there was one particular one where Joe Hart basically passed it to one of their players, and he had an open goal, and if he was a wee bit more clinical, then he would have scored. But it's just our quality was better than Aberdeen, and that's really what allowed us to capitalise on it, and make it a 5-1 game. I was really, really gutted that we conceded right at the end. We're 4-0 up at this point, and they had a break when they scored. And I was aware that we were almost going to make it 10 games without conceding that Parkhead in the league. And while it's great scoring so many goals from Parkhead, so many goals at Parkhead, you're aware that Kasper Schmeichel and that defence, they pride themselves on clean sheets. And whenever they concede a goal, you can see Kasper going mental. Ironically, he conceded that as near post, which he might have done better, but at the same time, you defend as a team. So I felt we were gutted that we conceded. But overall, brilliant victory, 5-1. We march on, and there's not that many games left in the season. So a great result.
Just obviously touching on Aberdeen's goal, I was the same as you, and I mean Kasper Schmeichel was livid. I think he booted his post. I don't know if you said that there, but I was disappointed as much as we were well in front again. It was 4-0 at the time. It was disappointing because, listen, it's not our record, but they were. Would that have been the record broken that night? Is that right, Gavin?
I think there was something. It'd been 10 clean sheets at home consecutively.
Aye,
I think
right,
because Aberdeen were the last team obviously to score.
I just got to say that, aye. But regardless, they were close to. Excuse me, they were close to breaking it, or they were going to break it. So that coupled with the fact that we just didn't keep a clean sheet was disappointing. But listen, you can't have everything. The 3 points were still won. Franny, yourself on the game, how did you feel it sort of panned out?
I think I've kind of summed up that it was a strange game in the sense that, like you said, there was a bit of sloppiness at the back at times. I thought the first sort of 5 minutes we kind of came out the box, obviously after the disappointment Hibs, and it was almost like, right, we've got a point to prove here. We're a bit maybe a winded animals, a bit harsh considering how well we have been domestically this season, but I don't think Brendan Rodgers, regardless of how well we're doing, takes losing a game well at any point of the season. So I think he wanted to come out with a point to prove. In the first few minutes, we started well. Then Aberdeen they got a couple of wee half chances, and Aberdeen just built on that. And like you say, the one for Nisbet where Kasper Schmeichel just plays an uncharacteristic pass out. It was almost like he just kind of played it blind and straight to Nisbet, and really should have scored that. And then I can't remember the other boy. I think he had a chance where he kind of got it about 18 yards out, and he sort of chopped it one way, and you thought he was going to shoot, and he just kind of chopped back again. I think it was one too many touches he taken. But like Gavin said, it was both defences. I don't think were particularly brilliant, but we were our attack showed the quality that Aberdeen's lacked, I feel like, and ultimately, like you say, that's how we came out 5-1 winners. I think I'd said in the chat at some point you wouldn't be surprised if this game, like jokingly, I wouldn't be surprised if this was 6-6 at some point. Just how glaring some of the chances were that Aberdeen had. They weren't stick on chances, but they were really, really good chances where maybe a better striker, or somebody more confident or better quality, you're sticking some of them away. So it was a very, very strange night. But on the flip side, it's one of them when you sometimes say it's when you win sticky games, one or with the odd goal like 1-0 or 2-1. That's late in the season, you're like, well, that's kind of championship winning form.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of them. You 5-1 without playing well against Aberdeen, who, yes, they're picked up in the last few weeks. I think they'd won 3 or 4 3 games in the bounce there, and are sitting third. But it's 5-1 against the team sitting third this late in the season, when you've not played particularly, not played but to your best, I would say, as a team collectively. Obviously there's good moments in it. I think you take that any day of the week, I suppose, at this time of the season.
Of course you do. You do. I feel like that there was obviously like moments in that game, certainly, where we didn't defend well. But then I think, as you said, I think we attacked really well at different points of the game, and our quality at the top end of the pitch, Gavin, I think, and then came through. I just want to bring up this comment. Was it Brownwater or not?
I hope it's not on it, because I was going to say, what do you mean?
No, there it's there. Sorry, I clicked on the wrong one there. P. McLaughlin saying Rab Douglas holds the shutout record for 01 to 02 season. So I wasn't quite sure. I don't know if you can come back in again and tell us how many games that was.
I believe it's 22, mate. And I think Casper Schmeichel's on 19.
All right. So he wasn't too far away, but listen, we could go on another run again. But back to the game, Gavin. I feel like as much as Celtic didn't pass the ball well, certainly out for the back in the early parts of the game, I think you have to credit Aberdeen to a certain extent, because you mentioned the press. I think that Aberdeen have looked at teams like, what do you call them? Young Boys, certainly Club Brugge. I think in the games, they both teams pressed us really well, and we struggled. I think Aberdeen have looked at that, albeit Aberdeen are probably not as good or aren't as good as they two teams. But I think that they pressed us really well. And when they did get the turnovers, they were relying on their pace, which we struggled with at times. And I think Franny touched on it. They sort of done that. I don't even know if it was so much a press in the second half the last time they came to Parkhead, but they really utilised their pace well against us, and we struggled then. I feel like as much as you would criticise Celtic, you maybe have to credit Aberdeen in their sort of approach to the game.
I agree. They kind of picked their moments and went to kind of put us under pressure. And the thing is, you don't need to be a skillful player on the ball to be effective at pressing. And as long as you're willing to kind of put in the hard yards, as long as you're willing to run whenever your player in front of you is about to receive the ball, it puts him into an awkward situation where he's discouraged from being brave on the ball to take it on a half turn and look for a pass. So Aberdeen were really, really effective at that, more so in the first half, and it made our defence and goalkeeper look a bit silly sometimes. They looked as if they were running out of ideas, and they just kept passing it back to each other, even more so than what they normally do. Normally they find a way to kind of break through that press, which we did on occasion, but largely in that opening half hour, Aberdeen looked very effective, and it kind of reminded me of Bruges in that way. Another thing I would say is Aberdeen, they're actually quite a physical team. They're all, big guys, and they're all athletes as well. So they made us work for it, and we did work for it, but we got there in the end. But I like to see that, a team being brave at Parkhead. It kind of makes you work for it. But whenever if they're kind of pushing forward to put us on a press, then whenever you beat that press, then you get the rewards, and we did that in the game.
Aye, absolutely. Franny, we'll come into the first goal, Maeda. I think it's Engels plays a reverse ball. I can't remember who he plays it to. And then Maeda, he's just in the middle of the goals, and he gets the half volley, takes it really well.
It does. It was. It kind of just looks up, and Maeda, as we've all been saying for weeks and weeks, it feels like you're rinsing and repeating with him now. With what you kind of say about him, he's just certainly in the last 5-6 weeks, he's absolutely flying. He's peaking at a absolutely. I mean, I say peaking. He's been good all season, but he's proper peaking at a right good time of the season. Has kind of coincided with the Sele Kyogo, and I can already hear McGinty coming. Maybe just got to hear a wee cameo on the podcast because he's said plenty of times that we should be playing him through the middle, and we've all said, but then look what he did, look what he's gave us from the left, not just this season, but pretty much since he came in. Everybody's argument, I suppose, to that was, well, Ange signed him, a guy that knew him well and played him in the left played him on the left as well, but what the guy's done for the middle has been absolutely ridiculous, to be fair to him. He just seems to find his cell. I say find his cell, it's his pace, I think, at times gets him into positions where they can even, like that one at Aberdeen, he's got the pace and he's to react, so he reacts to the situation. His pace gets him to the ball. Similar to the Hibs goal, that the first one at Hibs, it was a shot for Hatate that kind of loops up, and again, Maeda just reacts to it, and it's his pace gets him to the ball first. So, but it was a very, very good finish, and I think all sort of noticed it this season as well with Maeda. Technically, he looks to have came on leaps and bounds, I think. But I don't know if that's because it's just instinct. He's working a lot more on instincts, but certainly out wide, eyes crossing still at times to be desired, but it seems to be that he's slowing down with the crossing. He's thinking about them more a wee bit, and it is allowing him to get a better cross in. But his first goal was just typically what he seems to have done since he's started playing through the middle for us, and it was a really, really nice finish as well.
Aye, it was. And Gavin, I know you and McGinty obviously spoke at length about Maeda on Monday night, if I remember right. But listen, I'm not surprised by how well Maeda's done through the middle for Celtic. McGinty has obviously been a big advocate. He's saying that he should be played through the middle all the time. And I've never totally disagreed with that, but I've always felt that
one of his less crazy statements that he's made.
You're always going to get a hit at some point, aren't you? No, but seriously, listen, I've always really liked Maeda out in the left for what he gives us in for a defensive sort of point of view. But as I've said, I'm not surprised by how well he's done through the middle. Do you think that his best position on the evidence of what you've seen is playing as a central striker, or do you still think he's better off the left? I know that people Franny spoke about it there. He seems to sniff out where to be in the box in terms of where the ball's going to be, and then he gets sometimes quite an easy finish because he's positional sense and sniffing out chances. But I think he was able to do that off the left as well. I mean, we can't forget that I think he's got like 24, 25 goals this season. A large proportion of the goals have come for playing off the left. I know that he scored quite frequently if he's played through the middle, but I wouldn't say, for me, I don't know what you think, but I wouldn't say that his best position is through the middle. I think he's really good at playing both positions, and I take on board totally that what McGinty said the other night about his crossing's not the best. I totally agree with that. But as Franny said, I think this season under Rodgers, particularly this season, but in the time that Rodgers has had him, I think technically he's came on leaps and bounds.
It's a difficult question to answer. What's his best position? this is a bit of a cop-out answer, but his best position is in the starting 11 for Celtic.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you were to ask him what his best position would be, he'd probably say centre forward. That's what he did in Japan for his club team.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he does for his international team. And we're reaping the benefits of it right now. He's probably in the form of his Celtic career anyway. I don't know how the heights that he reached in Japan. Obviously, he reached certain heights in Japan to get international recognition and to catch the attention of Ange. But so far from his time at Celtic, I think this is his peak right now, and it just so happens that he's playing through the middle. I think just the way that he is, he has to play for Celtic. So the thing is, Jota is a more natural winger, so is Kuhn, a far more natural, talented winger than Maeda. But Maeda has certain strengths that you lose out in certain things by playing Maeda, but you gain certain other things by playing him as well. If a gun to my head, I would say his best position is centre forward. Yeah, technically that's the answer. But as long as he's playing in the front three for Celtic, then we'd be happy. If you're looking at a big game for Celtic and he's not on the team sheet, he's on the bench, then you'd be a wee bit worried, wouldn't you? As long as Maeda's up front, then I'm happy with that. But I probably centre forward, I would say. Oh, can I just say one other thing? Whenever Franny was talking, we think about the Three Amigos back in the 90s and how celebrated they are and how fondly remembered. Do you think that this Japanese contingent of Kyogo, who's now left, but Kyogo, Maeda and Hatate are in the same league as the Three Amigos in terms of fondness and the memories that they've created?
I would. Sorry, on you go, Franny.
I was going to say, I think I would probably think of the original Three Amigos more fondly, which is probably very harsh on the three Japanese boys because you consider they've probably contributed more. Hoydonk obviously will have that cup final goal that I'll go down in history because obviously how significant that goal was, and with Tommy Burns being the manager and things. And obviously, Hoydonk, what was he, a year and a half, 2 years he was at us, I think. Obviously, the other two were only a season. But it was the contribution they did having that. Like Cadet was like 36 goals or something they scored in one season. Decano was Decano. He fun enough had that Aberdeen goal. That was just ridiculous. That night where he just dinked it over Jim Leighton. It would have been Jim Leighton at the time.
In Aberdeen at Pataudry, yeah.
But I would always hark back to the original ones, but I think that's been probably very harsh on the three Japanese guys because I think once, obviously not wishing, as you say, Kyle goes away, but not wishing any of the other two away, certainly not Maeda anyway, but I think when they do go away, I think their contribution will be bigger. But it's the Rangers team as well, what they were like up, the Three Amigos were up against, the original ones were up against is a bit, it was different times, I guess, but I'd probably hark back to the original ones, but it's a wee bit harsh, I think, maybe on the.
Well, I totally take that on board. I would probably say that the original, well, I say the original, the Three Amigos were probably as a three, even as individuals, they were probably technically better than Maeda, Kyogo, and did you say Hatate? Aye. They were probably technically better, and they were probably had more physicality. So you would probably have to say on the face of it that the Three Amigos were probably better footballers, but the contribution in the trophy haul, obviously, as Franny touched on, were probably not playing against as strong a Rangers as they did. But I think they'll go down in the history, that sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? It escapes me now, but they go down, not legacy, like cult kind of hero players. They'll go down in time on a par with the guys, I feel like. But you would probably have to say that technically and physically, the Three Amigos were probably better footballers.
What says you, Gav?
Well,
Sorry, just talking to your host in there.
Oh, that's fine.
Aye, sorry, Ross, I didn't mean to interrupt your rhythm,
No,
but I guess
not at all.
perhaps sometimes whenever we have a new hero in football, you compare them to previous heroes. Maybe that's that kind of that's the mistake that we make sometimes, and they should just be celebrated in their own right, because in 10 years, 15, 20 years to come, we're going to remember those 3 Japanese players who had such a massive impact in the 2 years at Ange and then in the 2 years under Brendan. And they'll go away back to their native Japan, and we might not see them again, but the mark that they will have left at Celtic in their career will be felt in the amount of success we've had in that period. It's been, again, one of the most successful periods we've had in a long time in our history. So maybe the trap is not to compare them to the 3 Amigos, but to recognise them as being up there with a trio of players who made an indelible mark in Celtic's history.
Isn't
it quite funny that Tavernier seemed to have moved into centre half and Maeda's moved up front?
I've seen that earlier. Brilliant, eh? He's haunting them still. I just want to bring this comment up for Red Scotland. Love Dye's end since he signed, but he's now become a firm favourite in the minds of Celtic men. He's a serious candidate for a proper Celtic player. Maeda's got it to be a pioneering Asian Celtic legend. I think they're really good words. And listen, as much as we all loved Kyogo, I think that the biggest compliment I could probably pay Maeda is Kyogo, obviously before he left, but I could imagine a Celtic without Kyogo, if that makes sense. But I can't imagine a current Celtic without Maeda. I think he's even more important than Kyogo was to the Celtic team. Would you agree with that, Franny?
It's obviously more than the pressing that he does, but his pressing is absolutely frightening. I mean, we just need to go back as recent as the Bayern Munich games. It was absolutely brilliant in that, and it totally unsettled top defenders over 2 legs of football. And I totally agree with that. And like you say, we joke about the Rangers games and that as well. You see it with Tavernier that there is that element of doubt there. He just knows that Maeda's going to be on him. And I think as well with Maeda's pace and his press, and it's just the relentless of it, the fact that it doesn't matter if it's the first minute or the 91st minute, it's at the same pace, it's the same intensity. It doesn't necessarily need to be in the best game, but defenders know they cannot switch off for a minute when he's there, because he's just, as I say, he'll run all day for you. But obviously, he's more than a worker, but like work rate and natural having a bit of ability about you, will certainly go far. And I think us as Celtic fans, it's kind of what we want. First and foremost, we want a player that tries hard out for the jersey, and Maeda does that and more. And obviously, he's got some ability to back it all up as well. So I think, totally not to discredit what Kyogo done, but yeah, I think Maeda's more important to this team than a Kyogo.
I think so as well, obviously, as I said. But Gavin, I want to bring this comment up for P. McLaughlin. Maeda, the reason I'm bringing this, I know the reason I'm bringing this up is it sort of ties in with something I'm going to talk about a wee bit later in the podcast. But Maeda or Nakamura, who's the bigger Japanese legend when Dyson leaves?
I think it's really subjective. It's really down to your own kind of individual opinion. The mark that Nakamura left with those 2 iconic free kicks in the Champions League against such a high-profile team as Man United, that caught the imagination not only of Celtic fans but of the world. Whereas Maeda probably hasn't had the same global publicity as what Nakamura generated from those free kicks. Nakamura and absolutely totally different. Nakamura wasn't a player who had much pace, whereas Maida's blessed with it. Nakamura was such a cultured player. Brilliant first touch, brilliant execution with his left foot. Again, Maida doesn't have that. So they're polar opposites, but we love them both equally. Who's the bigger Japanese legend? On a global scale, it'd be Nakamura, but Maida hasn't left Celtic yet. So maybe whenever he does, he might just edge it. I think it's just down to your own personal preference. It's funny, a lot of the Japanese players, just maybe their culture, they have a kind of a humble personality. And I guess that's quite endearing as well. And maybe they're not overly fluent in English either, so we don't really get to see their personality. We certainly kind of got to see it from Kyogo, just because he had that kind of charisma on the park, not so much from his kind of broken English interviews. But I kind of love them both equally. Maybe Maida edges it just because of that work ethic. I think there's something about a work ethic that really appeals to your average fan, because we might not be blessed with the skill that a professional footballer had, but we can kind of recognise that work ethic, that the hard graft that Maida puts in, and maybe that kind of does it for some people.
Well, listen, it sort of does for me. Listen, I'm not saying Maeda is not he's not a technically better footballer than Nakamura. Nakamura could come up with bigger moments, obviously free kicks, but his left foot was incredible. But I feel like probably Maeda's more effective throughout the game. But listen, he might be a bigger legend when he leaves, but I think right now, obviously, because of father time, I think it makes Nakamura that more a legend. I don't know what you think on that, Franny, before we move on to the next goal.
Probably would just side with Nakamura just currently now, and I think, like Gavin said, it feels like he said bigger moments on the bigger stage. Oh, Maeda had Champions League goals, but Man United weren't the Man United that we see today. Anyway, they had the superstars. They had like Van der Sar and things like that. Your Rio Ferdinands of the world, Ryan Giggs at his pomp and things like that. So they had top players, and I think as well. I think Maeda's obviously quite popular in Japan, but Nakamura, I'm sure when we see one of the proper superstars in Japanese football. I think behind I think the boy's name was Nakata Roma at the time. I think it was so it was like it was just below they two type of guys, and that's when they sort of started to notice a lot more. Well, it also been Japanese folk at the time going to the football and stuff. Maybe just that felt, whereas we obviously live in a more diverse sort of a country now where there is more folk like that. There's more different cultures in Scotland than that these days, so you'll see them more natural to see them at football, where back then when Nakamura was here, it wasn't the norm, and it seemed you did see it a lot more back then. So I think it just felt just for that, it feels like Nakamura had a bigger impact. But as I say, like as I said, Maeda's still here. I think maybe when Maeda leaves, I probably suspect they might have had a bigger impact.
It's like they sort of debate say you can. It's all about opinion, really. But I think what we can all agree on is we're just blessed to have had both at our club. And we've had numerous good players at Celtic, and they're just another two to add to the list. But I'll come to the second goal. Obviously, I'll come to yourself, Gavin. It was what do you call him? I forget his name. Kuhn. He picks it up just outside the edge of his own box, plays a good ball, and then I think it goes to Jota, and then he plays it to Engels, and then he unselfishly plays it back inside to Jota. I mean, just touch on the goal itself, but then I want to talk to you about Engels. Just on, I think he had a real big involvement in the first three goals, and he obviously got man of the match as well. I feel like, listen, I've been saying for weeks that I think he's a really good player, months in fact, and I think a lot of the guys in the podcast agree. There's obviously a big section of the fan base who've still got their doubts, and then obviously, as we've spoke about at length for pretty much all season, obviously the price tag comes into play, which it shouldn't. But I think his contribution the other night, and obviously in that goal as well, I think it was brilliant. I think he's been really, really good. And I've heard people, I don't like this comparison to Matt O'Reilly, because obviously he's come in and people will perceive him as Matt O'Reilly's direct replacement, which he isn't. He just so happened to be the guy that comes in to fill that void in the midfield, but he's not a direct replacement to Matt O'Reilly. I think they're very different players, as much as people want to compare them. I see people comparing the numbers, but for me, I think Matt O'Reilly provided guile, that he could find that slide rule pass. I don't think that's quite in Engels' game yet, but what he doesn't have in a bit of guile, a slide rule pass. He can still pass a ball, he can still deliver, but he's got more dynamism and tenacity than what Matt O'Reilly ever possessed, I would say. But I don't like the comparison, but just obviously how you feel Engels performed in the game, touching on the goal, and just where you think he is currently at as a Celtic player.
Yeah, I'm really happy with the progress that Engels has shown. I think you need to be a wee bit patient with the boy, as you said, with the price tag. If you can be, other people won't be, and they'll demand perfection. But I don't think that the majority of Celtic fans are guilty of that. But Engels, no, I'm really happy with the progression. Obviously, he's got the favour of Rodgers whenever everybody's fully fit. It's him, Hatate, and McGregor who are always going to be in the midfield. He was taken out a little bit earlier on in the season when the performances dipped a little bit, but you would expect that from a player of his age. However, he's came back in and he's racked up a lot of man-of-the-match performances, especially at Parkhead. I think he's a bit of an all-action midfielder. The one thing you could probably highlight is maybe his goals, maybe his assists aren't totally up there. Although if you give me one moment, let me just have a wee look to see what So Engels has got 8 goals in the league and 5 assists. That's not bad reading at all. Certainly there are people who've got higher numbers than him, but I think that's pretty good considering it's his first season in the Scottish League. So I'll take that, and he's going to get better. In the game itself, I thought he was quite influential. Sometimes I wonder if he would enjoy greater freedom in the midfield if Callum McGregor wasn't playing. Mm-hmm. Time will tell. Okay, time will tell. Maybe he'll be gone before Callum McGregor retires at Celtic Park, and maybe we'll never see that. But I've just got a kind of inkling about that. I've just got a feeling. I could be wrong. But no, I thought we had a really good influence in the game. And as I said, Aberdeen are quite a physical team. He stood up to the physicality quite well. He doesn't shirk under that. And by the way, do you guys ever see whenever Celtic are defending a set piece, whether it be a free kick or a corner, and he's obviously man marking someone, he takes it very, very, very seriously, man. Like way before the ball is even kicked, he is wrestling his man marker. He takes it very, very seriously. He's so determined not to get outdone in a duel. Sometimes I wonder if the referee will keep his eye on that, and he might blow off a foul as soon as the free kick is taken. Maybe he needs to kind of watch that. He takes it very, very seriously. But no, over the whole, really good game. And for the goal itself, so it was a good counter-attack. And Jota, whenever he played in on Engels, he had a lot of space. From where I was sitting, so I was in the opposite half where I was sitting at Parkhead, and I just thought, hit it first time. And whenever he took a touch, I'm like, oh, like everybody around me were like, oh, why did you do that? Thinking, like, you never had the confidence to take it first time. But whenever I saw it back, and Jota was kind of free of space, wherever he had the ball, he could return it to Jota. Jota was in free of space. It kind of made sense when I could see it back on the camera replay. However, when Jota miskicked it, it just looked like it just kind of like floundered into the far post, and like a lot of us were just kind of laughing because we thought it was a sure goal the way that the counter attack was set up, but it just looked we just kind of huffed and puffed and got over the line with that goal. So it was kind of comical the way it went in. But considering the start that Aberdeen had made in that first half, and we looked kind of up against it with the press, I was so relieved to see that 2-goal cushion be created. I was really happy with that. And another assist for Engels, and another goal for Jota, who is still not back for full fitness, but he's getting into the rhythm. So happy days.
Aye, Jota is getting into the rhythm. Listen, as you've said, he's still not back to full fitness, but you can see just the qualities. I think he showed different bits in the game, Franny. Really good. But we'll come to. I'll not come to you each individually, but each goal, because there was that many. But I'll come to you on obviously the McGregor goal, and again it sort of coincides with Engels. I'll talk to you about Engels, but Engels sort of stats, if you like, in the game. 80 minutes played, 6 chances created, 7 recoveries, 89% passing accuracy, and he was dispossessed 0 times. And within the game, he also had 2 assists. Are you giving him an assist on Cal McGregor's one off the back there? I mean, listen, I'm not a big stats guy, but I think I heard Simon Jordan talk. It wasn't Simon Jordan. It was actually Ange Postecoglou talking about he's no big in assists because, like what happened with Engels, it can hit somebody's back and then you've got an assist. But listen, he made a nuisance himself in that sort of action, and it provided the opportunity for Cal McGregor to take a chance. But just obviously talk about the goal, and then same question to you on Engels. Where do you think he's at right now as a Celtic player?
Well, I'll start with the goal. It's like, obviously it was we sort of intricate passes, and there was one into Engels where he just tries to roll the Aberdeen boy and kind of falls down. It does hit him in his back, and obviously McGregor, who's all left-footed, but he hits a nice curling shot with his right foot into the bottom corner. And like you say, just the way stats work. I mean, Engels will be claiming it all day long, because most players these days they like a wee stat pad, and I feel like in anything they'll cling on to. So I suppose it's the way things work that it just kind of sort of deflects off his back. There's no way in this world that he's actually meant to play into McGregor in that fashion. But it's the way stats work, and it was a nice finish and just put us on absolutely, I say cruise control. Aberdeen still had moments after that, but you're sitting going, this is actually mad that we're up 3-0 here. But it goes back to how we started the podcast. We've been how clinical, and like we said, Engels had a bigger involvement in the previous goal than he had an involvement in this goal. But I'm somebody used to. James has been very consistent all season as well, and saying that we're happy where Engels is at. He was 20-year-old when he came in. Obviously came for Osberg. The guy's obviously a winner. He's a professional. He wants to win his game, but he maybe didn't realise. It maybe takes you a wee while to come in and understand what it actually means to play of a club of Celtic stature, and the demands of having to win every game. Obviously, you're not given right to win it. You will lose some, but you have to win every game. Doesn't matter the opposition at the end of the day. And yeah, he came in and he had a great start at the start of the season. Obviously, made his debut against Rangers, I think, and the next game he starts against Bratislava, and he obviously scores a penalty there. And I mean, certainly myself, this is what an £11 million player looks like. This is what we're looking at, and he had a good wee run. Yes, it sort of died down a wee bit, but I think a lot of that was a bit of form. It's got to take into consideration the guy's age, the demands he was playing. Like we say, we're playing 2-3 games a week and stuff. Something he's not necessarily used to. And I think if you actually look at it, was made a big deal about him, made 50 appearances in the Bundesliga, I think, but that was over 2 seasons, I think. So he's not really consistently played first team football, which at that age you wouldn't necessarily expect that either. So I'm totally happy with his look. Certainly the last 4 or 5 games anyway, he's really took his game to a really good level where I feel he's looking right good. Every worth every penny so far for me, and looks like he'll go on to be a very, very good signing for us. And yes, he might have another wee dip in form. Simply, again, it's his age, the position he plays in, and I hope that's peeing there, Gavin. You just can hear you pouring that other drink there.
Trickle.
I know. I'm more than happy with Engels. Yes, folk, I'll go back to the price tag. And as annoying as it is, it's only natural you're going to pick up the price tag because we're just not really known for going to the levels. And maybe I'm not saying we need to sort of spend that money on every single player, but maybe he's guilty of the fact that we don't generally spend that money on a player. For obvious reasons, he's a record signing, so that it shows we don't generally do that. But we've only really spent 9 million on Ida and Edward. Then you go back down to like 6 million really to be, well, at the time it would have been a record signing then. So it's not really money we're used to spending. So maybe folk are expecting a lot more, but it's just what 11 million gets. 11 million gets you that level of potential at the end of the day. And he's had a couple of caps for Belgium as well. Really, he's not a bad player. I think we could have a right top player on our hands, and he's seems to have a good attitude. Certainly, his recent interviews as well, where he's understanding the demands as well of the football club. Even after the Bayern Munich game, he was saying how he was proud of the players, but unhappy with the result and things, which is. Yeah, folk might say it's birthday card pish. What else is going to say and stuff? But nah, totally happy with the guy, and I think next season I hope it has a good end to the season and just kicks on again next season. I think he could be really, really good. He's taking the games by the scruff of the neck at times now, which I think maybe a lot of folk are expecting from him.
Listen, I think that we've paid £11 million for him, and at times this season, he hasn't showed that he's worth 11 million. I don't think, as much as we paid 11 million for him, I don't think he's an £11 million player right now. But I think by probably the end of next season, everybody will be going, he's worth every penny of that £11 million we paid. Obviously, with his development and Rodgers helping that development, I think not only has he shown large periods of the season, Gavin, that he's got loads of football and ability. I think with that, the fact that he's only 21, you look at his height, his stature right now at 21, I think he's still got, I don't want to say growing, he's maybe all the height he's going to be now, but he's certainly a big, tall guy. But I think in terms of the growth, I mean, like, he'll probably fill out more. If he's working in the gym, then he'll get physically even better. And I think he's like quite a physical specimen now for a guy 21. I think he'll get physically even better. I just want to come back to yourself, Gavin. I'm not. This isn't me saying I disagree with you at all, by the way. But you said you wondered if he would have more freedom in the midfield if McGregor wasn't in the team. I just wondered what you sort of meant by that.
I feel that McGregor, for sometimes people get offended whenever you criticise a Celtic captain. I think McGregor is sometimes guilty of slowing the game down in the midfield. And I noticed that it was a couple of months back, whenever it was either a game where McGregor wasn't playing or McGregor was subbed off, and you had like Bernardo and you had Engels playing in the centre midfield with somebody in the number 10, whether it was Hatate or whether it was Luke McCowan, and I was just watching the movement of Engels and the way that he was demanding the ball from the centre backs and the full backs, and how he was making himself available for that kind of number 6 role. And I think he's, for all intents and purposes, we're probably not going to get 5 years of Engels. We might just kind of flip him for a profit. But if that wasn't the case, then he could be the young pretender to the throne in terms of the Cal McGregor role. I just think that sometimes you find yourself in an environment where there's a person who's in the role that you want to be, and you might think, I can do that role better than him, or I'll be good enough to be better than you whenever I'm at that level. And I just think that I'm not saying, I don't want to go back in my words and say that Cal McGregor impedes Engels. Not at all. He's learning from him. Definitely learning from him. And he's harnessing that winning mentality as well, which is a massive kind of culture shift from playing, once a week. You might draw, you might lose, you might win in the Bundesliga to Celtic, where you're playing once every 3 games and you have to win every game. Otherwise, it's moderately a disaster. I think he's coming on great mentally, but I just think that the way that he moves sometimes, he's trying to find his own way in the midfield, and maybe sometimes if McGregor wasn't there, then you might see him flourish a bit more. But McGregor's not going to go anywhere, so Engels is going to have to work around him. And I think for a midfielder nowadays, I don't think you need to be a number 8, you need to be a number 6. I think you should be able to do a bit of everything. I hear a lot of the kind of old school footballers say that, and they don't understand, he's a 6, he's an 8. If you're a midfielder, you should be able to do everything. And I think that Engels can do everything. So I'll kind of stop talking before I start waffling now.
No, listen, I totally take you. I understand where you're coming from.
Right.
Obviously, I think there was a game where McGregor didn't play and Engels. I think everybody's made a case throughout the season that he did sort of flourish in that game. And I think basically what I've took from what you've said there is essentially it's not a slight in Cal McGregor, but if Cal McGregor comes out the team, then Engels is quite happy to sort of take that mantle, if you like, and go into that role and be. Well, Cal McGregor's not here now, so guess what? I'm going to be the main man in this midfield. So it's more a sort of praise for Engels, praise for Engels rather than a slight on Cal McGregor, which I totally agree with. I think that's a really fair point.
And the next thing he needs to do, see whenever the Huns visit in March, I want him to see. I want to see him having an eye-catching performance, not so much a goal or an assist, but I want him to be a match for them physically, and not to lose the head. Just get his game face on, and not play the game, not the occasion. I want to see him stand up to be counted in that game, because that's another thing that will endear him to the Celtic fans. If he can acquit himself well against our top rivals, then he'll go a long way.
I agree with that. And by the way, I think, I don't know if you agree, Franny, I think that Engels has shown that in big games. Maybe not against Rangers yet, because, listen, he was okay in the first game. We absolutely dominated Rangers, and nobody had to be playing out of their skin that day because it was so easy. But certainly, I would say in the away game against Bayern, I thought he was phenomenal. And then probably for the turn of the year, he's been Celtic's best midfielder. So I think he has shown that he will be able to step up to that, but it's actually doing it in that game, as Gavin said.
It's maybe a bit unfair on some players, because whether we like it or not, we kind of judge a lot of players on what they do against Rangers. But I do tend to agree that I think he needs a big game. Just again, it probably harps back to the price tag as well, and him being a record signing. We just want him to see, like Gavin said, dominate this game, but dominate it in such a fashion where he's going like similar to what he done the other night, and then like say against Bayern Munich, where he showed his physicality, he got stuck in, he was winning his duels and things like that. So you just want him. It's not about going putting boys up and down and committing fouls here and there. It's winning your duels, getting stuck in. Yes, you might have some fouls, but just when you get there a wee second too late or whatever, you're just a wee bit too eager. I certainly shown his physicality, shown his ability, and his sort of I know we've harped on about how young he is, but his maturity does seem of a mature mind anyway, and a mature footballer. So I totally get what Gavin says, and I kind of agree with it in the sense that I think he needs a big game against him, and just, as I say, hopefully it's in a couple of weeks. You don't want it to drag. You don't want it to go into that game and have a very poor game, because then it kind of gives folk a wee bit stick to poke him with again, and it might go a wee back into his shell a wee bit again, and you're waiting to maybe Ibrox for him to have a good game there, and we don't know what sort of time that game will be played in terms of the league, because by the time the splits came around, I mean, the league's done, but mathematically by the time you go to Ibrox, it's probably totally done, and they've maybe got one eye in the cup final and stuff. So it's just, I hope he has a good moment, a good game, and against Rangers. I mean, it's an obvious statement, but I totally agree with what Gavin said.
Aye, no, I totally get it. It is, you want to do that against your biggest rivals, and that will hopefully finally like sort of shut up any of the doubters that are still sort of lingering. But to sum up in the Engels chat, currently right now, Dyson Maeda is most, and he's my favourite Celtic player currently. If Dyson Maeda wasn't at Celtic, then Arne Engels would be my favourite player. I think he's that good. I've been really, really impressed by him, and certainly for the turn of the year. But Franny, I'll come to yourself. We'll move on to let me think, the fourth goal. Yang got it. He picked it up. He done this a few times, picked it up on the sort of touchline. There was a moment where he picked it up on the touchline, he came inside and he found Ida, and Ida sort of spun and got a shot off. Keeper saved it, but he'd put it in Ida, albeit Ida's got his back to goal, but he made that opportunity where Ida could sort of spin the defender, roll the defender, and get his shot off. So he done well there. And he done it a couple of times in the game, and he done it obviously for his goal where he picked up the touchline, he came inside. And I'm starting to see Yang now where he is. If he is coming inside, I feel like he's finding a pass now, and then he's continuing his run and penetrating defences and asking a question. He done that for his goal. Obviously, he played 2 1-2s, and then he's played it in at near post. Poor goalkeeping. But I've been really impressed with certain things that he's done, and I think he has improved. He still dilly-dallies in the ball sometimes, but that goal, and again, similar to Engels, where you think Yang currently is and his sort of progression and his sort of stance as a Celtic player.
I'll start with goal. It was good playing. We have seen him doing that from time to time in his Celtic career, where he'll pick it up and he can cut inside. Well, it was just the majority of the time when he's been here, he's picked the wrong option or everything 1 or 2 minute touches, but he was quite aggressive, I guess, in his playing. It was almost, there is a compliment in what I'm trying to say here, it was almost schoolboy stuff what he done, in the sense that it was just continued. He played the one, like you said, played 1-2s, but continued his run. Now, he might never receive that ball, but the fact is, it was like, it's what you kind of say at schoolboy levels, just play that pass in, look for the 1-2. There might be a better pass on, but what you'll do is you'll drag a defender away and maybe create space and things like that. So it was very, his play was very simple and direct, but very good. It was sort of a rule one in football, just say continue your run, and then he gets his bit of luck for that for scoring at the near post. It was a well taken, a nice pass for Luke McCowan, who has got that in his locker to pick the right pass at the right moment and stuff. And Yang, I suppose that again, you'd probably say go across the keeper. There, that's what you'd be telling a young player, just at that sort of angle, go across the keeper. But I suppose in Yang's defence, he gets a good connection on it, and there is an argument for the keeper to do better. But let's not try and take this moment away from Yang. He's had a bit of not had the best Celtic career if we're fair, but I don't want to sit and batter the guy when he's scored a pretty decent goal at the end of the day. And he's in a decent bit of form. He had a wee 3-4 games last season where he played well up until that Hearts game where he got wrongly sent off, but it seemed to affect him that time. But even the sort of first leg against Bayern Munich, when he came on, he had a good game. I feel like it impacts games better than when he starts them. It's almost like his energy and his sort of directness at times, because maybe defenders are a wee bit tired, it gets away with, it's probably wrong. But he's more effective maybe at that stage than at the start of the game, where maybe defenders have still got a lot of energy about them and are maybe a wee bit standing off and not as lazy in a challenge or second guessing challenges in case they foul him or whatever. But now the guy's in a good bit of form. He's always a player that I thought there is something there. I've maybe not been as big on it as yourself, and certainly Stephen has been on it for a wee while, but then similar to McGinty, you say enough, you'll get one right, because Stephen's living off the Eddie Howe shout for God knows. Well, he'll live off that for the rest of his days, saying that
Shots
Eddie Howe wasn't
fired.
going to be Celtic manager. So he's. I reckon if you go back, you'll find that there'll be somewhere that Stephen has been slating Young, but now that he's got a wee bit of form, he's remembered that he was picking him up all these times ago. And look, I personally don't. He's clearly got, like any player, he's clearly got something to end up at Celtic. He's not a bad player. Clearly not a bad player, because no bad players have got to end up at Celtic. It's just whether he's good enough to have a Celtic career. I don't know. Brendan Rodgers seems to trust him. He's obviously stuck by him and kept him around anyway. Obviously, we don't know if he was actively trying to get him out. There was rumours that we're still trying to get another winger in January. So what does that mean for Yang? I don't know. Were we really trying to get a winger, or was Rodgers happy to run with Yang for the time being? But no, certainly. I mean, I say I've liked him, but I certainly don't see him having much of a future at Celtic. But hopefully, it proves me wrong, because that only benefits Celtic at the end of the day. I just personally don't see it. I don't see him having much of a future. But certainly now, I'm not going to sit and slate the guy. The guy's in a decent bit of form. I think it'd be very harsh to be sitting saying he's rubbish and this and that. I just don't see him having much of a future at Celtic, but certainly now he's performing decent enough to now.
I think to say that you don't see him having much of a future, I think that's fair. I wouldn't totally disagree with that. But Gavin, I'll put to you, talk about Yang, but I'll put to you on, if he continues, I don't want to say he's been in a brilliant bit of form, because it's been like patches, fits and starts, but he is starting to affect games, I would have to say. And I wouldn't say I've been on the Yang boat as such, but I felt like you can see that there's a player in there, but I've always said that he can't put all the facets of his game together. And I have said recently that I feel like his time was coming to an end, but then off the back of that, he has shown this bit of form where he's starting to affect games. If he shows the sort of form that he's been showing in recent weeks, do you think, I think for Celtic to get another winger that's going to be happy sort of maybe playing second fiddle to Kuhn, for example, I think it's difficult for Celtic to get that. In an ideal world, we get somebody as good as him, as good as Kuhn, as good as Jota, as good as Maeda. Do you think that we do go out and get another winger and Yang's time's coming to an end? Or do you think if he shows this sort of form that Rodgers will sort of stick by him, no get that other winger, and be happy to bring Yang into games like he has been doing? As Franny said, I don't think he's as effective when he starts games, but maybe in time, again, he can improve even more, because I think you have to say he has improved. If he came in to what he is now, he's still not anywhere near the finished article or the level that we feel should be starting games for Celtic. But would you be happy for him to be the sort of understudy still next season and not sign that other winger? And then obviously talk about that, and then the final goal where again Yang comes off the touchline and he finds that pass into Johnson, again affecting the game, and then Johnson plays the ball that he's been playing pretty much all season right across that corridor of uncertainty, as Andy Gray would say, and Maeda's in at the back post for the tap in.
Look, I've been wanting Yang to come on to a game, and I think he does it in patches, which largely is what both of you guys have said. I don't think he's good enough to be a Celtic player. At the same time, though, historically, if you look at the bench that Celtic have had over the past 10 odd years, there's always been mediocrity on that bench. We want the best. We've got high ambitions for our team. We want to upgrade players. in the first 11 and on the bench. But the reality is that we do kind of carry around a few people on the bench who are not that great. But that's not an excuse to keep Yang. I wouldn't be surprised if Yang is still at Celtic Park next season. I wouldn't be surprised. But the guy is 22 going on 23, I think. So he was another kind of 2 million, one of those random 2 million purchases that Celtic seem to make. And we have done, and we will do in the future. No, but I think over the course of judging him so far this season and last season, I don't think he's good enough to be a Celtic player. I'm not going to get too carried away with his performance. Coming on as an impact sub against a tiring opposition team at Celtic Park who've been running around frantically trying to defend. I'm not going to get carried away with that. I want him to do well. And as Franny said, if he actually does prove the doubters wrong, then great, because what's good for Celtic is good for us. I just don't see it happening. I think that the guy has got a certain limit, ceiling. It was a higher ceiling than Palmer, which was why Palmer's away and why Yang is still here. But I don't think that his future and Celtic's future correlate. I think that there's going to be a parting of our ways at one point. If I had my own way, I would make it sooner than later. But again, if you're going to get rid of him, then do we make another random punt on a 2 million white man, which we have done so often? Somebody mentioned Tellio in the comments, like Christ, Tellio's another white man.
Still had him.
Yeah, totally. So there's better people out there. But as you said, Ross, who's content enough to be in the bench? It's just a shame that James Forrest's career is winding to an end. He's a right winger, and when he's fit, he's a very, very astute winger who protects the ball, protects possession so well, and he can find killer passes. But I don't think Yang is good enough for Celtic. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's still at Parkhead next season.
Listen, it's hard to disagree with that. It really is. I agree with yourself. You hope that he does well, and I do like certain aspects of his game. I think that he looks, when he runs at defenders, he's got that trickery, and he, for all the world, looks like what we all on paper perceive a Celtic winger to be, where he excites you and he gets your bum off the seat, if you like, but it's the end product at times. But I feel like it is coming in fits and starts. Whether he can be the level a starter remains to be seen. Franny, did I ask you about Yang?
Aye,
right, that's fine. I just couldn't remember there. So we'll move on to all that
Zone
chat.
out when Franny was talking.
No, I did,
cheers,
but
Ross.
then I was listening to you and I was like, I'm going to go back to Franny, but I can't remember last time. But no, that's cool. So obviously we've touched on all the goals there and the performance. I just want to briefly touch on the Aberdeen goal. Franny, I'll come to yourself first. Gavin, I think you mentioned earlier, Kasper Schmeichel gets beat his near post, which is never good. For me, and I know it's not easy coming into a game, especially, it's probably a bit easier when you're up 4-0 right enough, but I felt like, for wanting a better phrase, I felt like the way Liam Scales defended that was absolutely shite.
It wasn't great. To be fair, it didn't come into the game play very well. Scales. He's feels like his minutes are becoming less and less. Rodgers has clearly nailed his colours to the mast. We trust it. I believe the Scales will still be a very able deputy when he comes in. We know what he can do, providing he's happy to be that, have that role and play that position. But if I've got any defensive skills, I don't think Trusty had a overly great game either. The other time, so it was a bit, but skills to be high, but they did the cover of Cell and Glory there, and like you say, Schmeichel, there's questions I think you can ask of Schmeichel as well, getting beat his near post. And like we touched on earlier as well, he was going for a record as well. And I think when you look at our defensive record this season as well, the defence as a team clearly are very proud of that. And yes, it might have been a consolation goal, but even then, it's nice to see the attitude of the players not happy to lose a goal when you're 4-0 up and a sense in the closing minutes of a game of football. I suppose that's what, if there's a positive to take out of it, they did show genuine disappointment. Well, certainly like genuine disappointment anyway.
I think there was genuine disappointment. I'd agree with that, but I think in the way they lost the goal, in terms of the way Scales defended it, and Kasper Schmeichel getting beat his near post, I think there was a huge sense of frustration as well as disappointment. But Franny, obviously, Gavin, he touched on Trusty there briefly.
I totally forgot about that. I forgot about that catastrophic moment for Trusty, man.
The one where he sort of loses his man.
He's receiving the ball. He's looking to make the pass. He gets closed down, and then he just has, like, I don't know. He just shites the bed, and the guy picks his pocket and then sprints up towards the goal, and it wasn't a goal in the end, but it looked a terrible personal mistake. Such a bad individual error.
It really was.
I think he's got it in him, and I'm not looking for him to inherit a Starfelt criticism. It's just so difficult to buy a centre back who's as good as Cameron Carter-Vickers. We're so lucky sometimes to have Cameron Carter-Vickers that the focus is always going to be on his centre back partner. But that particular moment was really bad. And there's been a couple this season.
It was a really bad moment for me. Obviously, you've done that. Not a comparison as such with Starfelt, but I feel like Starfelt made more mistakes, and he gave me the fear more when he was actually on the ball than McTrusty does. But I think probably at the moment you would have to say that Starfelt sort of defended his box better than McTrusty does, and that'll bring me on to, obviously, it was a thing I noticed the other night, and I've noticed it probably since the Dundee game where he got done in the back post by the young Donnelly. I don't know if he's been spooked by that, but it's hard to watch him defending a corner, Gavin, where before the ball's even in, he's so occupied with the man that he's marking that you feel like you're not even watching that ball. You should be concentrated on the ball and have your body shape towards the ball with your man and your sort of peripheral. And he's just all over the guy and just so occupied with the defender. It's so hard to watch sometimes.
Yeah. And the thing is, was he not coached by Chris Wilder at Sheffield United, who's obviously quite a defensive-minded manager? Could be wrong, but I think he was under Chris Wilder at the time. You would have thought that kind of behaviour would have been ironed out whenever he wants his defenders to be more composed, especially for set pieces. It's just the kind of the body behaviour which is going to attract the attention of the referee. And you've got some referees who might warn a player, don't do that, keep doing it, then I will give a penalty or a free kick. Some referees won't warn you, they'll just look at it and they'll wait for the ball to go into action, and then they'll blow for the whistle. It's not yet happened, but I agree with you. And he's a senior defender. He's not a young youth product. You would just Cam Carter-Vickers must be looking at him thinking, chill out, mate. You never see him getting involved in things like that. I would like to see him. I would like to see him iron that out, but maybe it's just what he's always been doing in his career, and it might be difficult to coach out of him. But yeah, it's a bit of a cause for concern.
Well, to be honest with you, listen, that's just an observation. It's not a huge criticism.
Yeah.
It is, like you said, it's iron it out. I actually like the guy as a player. I think he's decent. I think he's done well for Celtic. And I think, Franny, I don't know if you agree with this, but I feel like he's probably done, or his better performances have been in Europe, where he's having to probably defend more than what he does in the EPL, defend his box more. And I know I said that Starfelt defended his box better, which I probably think he did, or he does. but I feel like there is a good defender in Trusty there, and I'm happy to stick with him for now. I don't know, what's your thoughts on that?
I'm happy enough to stick with him as well. Like I do. I noticed it when you obviously had said that other night, sent the message on the group chat the other night. You do start to notice it, and it probably is something he has been doing for many years, and it is maybe a wee bit concerned considering VARs in play and things like that. So you can only assume he's obviously not. He's doing enough to get away with it, essentially. But you just feel like he might get caught out, and I don't know if he's maybe guilty of sort of the modern day defender type thing that's not really used to like, the rough and tumble, maybe the Scottish League where guys will try and rough you up essentially, where you might get the chance to stand off and not properly defend where you need to be strong and get in amongst it. But no, I'm happy enough to stick with him, and I think as much as I think Rodgers will get his way in the summer, I think it would be a hard sell to be given a £6 million defender and then want to not bin him essentially, but replace him in the summer again. I think as much as I say as Rodgers, I think he'll get backed. I think that's maybe one position where it might, if we were to say, oh no, we need a centre half, I think that's going to be a hard one to get by the board when they'll be like, no, we gave you your guy at £6 million. Not saying make it work. Obviously, if the guy starts turning out horrendous, you're going to have to replace him. But I don't think he's at that stage where we need to be too concerned about him. Especially when you look at that Atlanta performances, the Bayern Munich performances. The guy has shown that he can defend. So it's just maybe, obviously don't know the guy, but it seems like you said he's poorer games, if you like, are at domestic level. Maybe it's just need to get that drilled into him to say, look, the standards you give against your Atalantas, your Bayern Munichs, and the European fixtures, we need that on Saturday and Sunday as well. Then you just pick and choose when you want to turn up here. I'm not saying that's what the guy's doing, but maybe there is a wee bit of an element in that. He knows that he's a good enough defender. He's maybe good enough that he can turn it on in the games, or he's just more focused in the games. Obviously, just guessing at that point, but maybe there's an element to that.
It's a good point.
That is a good point. I just brought that. I'm going to bring it up again because I want to read it out. 2 seconds. Fucking, why is it doing that? That's so
I'd get Vickers up for life if you could.
Well, I mean, that'd be amazing. Red Scotland obviously says I'd get Vickers signed for life. I mean, in an ideal world, whether we can do that, it's not going to happen, of course. We need him. I'd sign another top defender in summer, punt of Rocky, have Scales, then Trusty as backup. That's fine. I understand he's thinking there, and I don't disagree with it. But Gavin, yes, like as I've said, I like Trusty. I think he's okay. Excuse me, as Franny said, Rodgers has been given $6 million to bring him in. Excuse me, a bit of bother with wind there. But Rodgers has been given $6 million to bring him in. In an ideal world, if you don't think, or if Rodgers doesn't think that Trusty's good enough to be the first choice alongside Carter Vickers, then you just go out and sign somebody else. It's not an ideal world though, and I probably feel that in the summer there's maybe more pressing issues in terms of positions that need addressed before a centre back. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, although he's kind of brought a bit of attention to himself this season, and Franny makes a good point that it seems to be more prominent sometimes in domestic rather than Europe. But we have to remind ourselves that the domestic games are our bread and butter. So we spent $6 million on him. Is he better than Scales? Yeah, probably. Is he far better than Scales? Maybe not so. But then again, we can compare him. Pardon me?
If you watch if you listen to TalkSport, Dean Saunders asks himself questions all the time and then answers them.
See, whenever I was doing that, I was thinking of McGinty because McGinty has that same pattern as well. As long as I don't talk about myself in the third person, I think I'm okay.
Aye, true,
Thank you for pointing that out. So, but Ross, I agree with you that with Celtic we always have problems. It's kind of like playing that whack-a-mole. Whenever you've dealt with one problem, another one sprouts up, and that's about Celtic. You're wanting to, you're like, look at that performance in Bayern Munich, let's do better next season. But what we kind of tend to forget in the emotion of that is that Bayern Munich performance is probably going to mean that somebody might come in for Alice or Johnson, and that was a problem which we didn't anticipate. So then we need to kind of address that situation. So right now we're thinking about we're going to be addressing the left back situation going into next season. Schlupp has been brilliant in these past couple of games. We might not get him, but we're getting Tierney coming in, brilliant. So maybe that takes care of that problem. Do we upgrade Trusty? Maybe not, because we've got other issues. Maybe Ida potentially is not cutting it. I think it's a fair argument to make. Maybe that's something that we need to address. We tried to get Gvisgarden, but it didn't work out in January. So maybe we need to concentrate our resources towards that. Or maybe we need to think about maybe bringing in someone to be the inheritor to Callum McGregor's throne. So it's not the most pressing concern, but it's noted that he's had a bit of a bumpy ride. He's not been shite. Maybe I'm doing him a disservice. He's just had a couple of games which have caused discomfort, which the manager has commented on. But maybe he can ride through that. Somebody spoke about Julian. I was never a fan of Julian, but there's a lot of people on this podcast who disagree with me, and I think that Julian was a really, really good centre back for Celtic. So it's all about opinions, I can kind of maybe see the comparison between Trusty and Julian, but other people are really happy with Julian, and maybe that means that they're happy with Trusty as well. But I agree, it's maybe not the most pressing concern, but it is noted.
See, to be fair, I actually like both Trusty, I like Trusty and I liked Julian, but I totally get the comparison because Julian had moments where he was bullied. That game at Kilmarnock springs to mind, and it happened on a few other occasions. I think it happened maybe Lyndon Dykes, Livingston. Struggled there as well, and you see that elements of that in Trusty where he struggles with that sort of physicality. And by the way, that's a worry the more against I forget the St Mirren players' names, but
two big boys, but
Olasanya or something. One of them,
Olasanya and Odemwemi. Is it Odemwemi or something?
Aye, something like that. But they're physical players, so that is a worry the more. But we'll get onto that later in the podcast. So we'll wrap that up on the sort of players. I want to talk about what was his name? Is it Jude Bonner? I want to talk about him in a wee minute, just on his sort of cameo. But before we go into that, I've got a wee football teaser question.
Do I need to turn the comments after this?
No. It's just basically, well, I'll read the question, but guys will probably put some guesses into the comments, which is fine. You can put the comments off if you want, but you don't have to. What I'll do is I'll read out the question. You can have a guess at one each, and then I'll go back to it later in the podcast, and you can see how many you've come up with.
I'm getting my notes out my phone because there's a few then, aren't there?
There's 9.
Right. So let me bring up a Word document so I can start typing.
See, I would just write it with a pen and paper, but that's me. Which 9 players have scored for 6 different English Premier League clubs? So, Gavin, I'll let you have the first guess.
Which 9 players have scored for 6 different
English Premier League clubs?
That's the top of that question, by the way.
Thanks.
6.
Peter Crouch.
Peter Crouch is correct.
Oh, yes.
Well done, Gavin.
I'm going Darren Bent. It's my first guess.
Well done, Franny. Really good guess. That's 2 out of the 9. So we've 7 left. I'll leave it with yourselves. The guys in the comments can fire it in whenever they want. I'll be returning to that question, obviously, in a wee while. So you can have a wee think about it. But Franny, I'll just come to you. Obviously, Jude Bonner, he came on. Listen, it wasn't amazing, but he done okay for a young guy in his debut. He worked really hard. He looked to get involved. I think the biggest thing for me is he never looked phased. He was quite happy. He was showing for the ball, things like that. And I think Brendan Rodgers even touched on it in his press conference today. I'm struggling here with the wind, by the way. That Chinese is really, it's absolutely destroying me, But I think Rodgers touched on his sort of physicality. He said he spends extra time in the gym, and that probably made a real impression on Rodgers. I don't know if, listen, I'm no privy to it. I don't know if all the youth guys do that, but Rodgers seemed to make a point that you see him spending extra time in the gym. I think things like that really make an impression on the manager. But I thought he'd done okay. Not spectacular, but decent debut for a young guy.
I suppose it was nice to go. I mean, I know it was only 10 minutes, but still, so it was nice that he had the opportunity to get decent minutes for a debut, and at home as well, where you're cruising in the game. It's not one where you're maybe getting beat, maybe on a European night and stuff, and you just chuck a young lad on just for his debut for the sake of it, and it's kind of no fair in the laddie. So it was good that he can come on where you know the team's going to win, and there's no real pressure on him, so to speak. So it was good. And like I say, all you can ask is that he shows for the ball. He obviously never had many touches, but he never done anything. For me, never done anything amazing, but he never done anything terrible. And I've got to caveat that it's 10 minutes of game's kind of fizzling out at that point. There's not getting played at that intensity and stuff like that. So he's unfortunate in that sense, but I think the boy can be happy. And like I say, Rodgers obviously touched on doing work in the gym, which I don't know if that's maybe a wee subtle dig at guys like Daniel Cummins and stuff. Not saying that he's not doing the work in the gym, but obviously there was all the chat not so long ago about Rodgers talking about the youth players saying, if you're patient, if you show ability and things like that, you will get your chance. And then Daniel Cummins obviously a couple of weeks after that comment signs a pre-contract with it's West Ham he signed for, I think it is. And obviously Rodgers has now gave the young boy Bonner a chance the other night. He's complimented him in the following press conference today, which can only bode well for the guy. Maybe he's shown that attitude that Rodgers is looking for in the young players. I mean, we all harp on saying we need to produce our next Callum McGregor or our next James Forrest or whatever. And I agree, we do, but it's not solely Celtic are at fault for that, but it's not solely Celtic's fault. And it's probably for another podcast, but the youth set up in Scottish football is nothing short of shite at the end of the day. Let's be honest, it's that low. Like, yes, I was all for it. You would be able to go back to previous podcasts when it was all the chat about it. I was all for it because I thought it's competitive football with no reserve league at the time, so it was getting the B squad football and competitive football. But it's essentially coming up 5 leagues if the guys are coming up, so it's not ideal. And also the restrictions of if they played 5 first team appearances, they then can't play for the B squad, that's just absolutely stunting their development for me. So it's hard, I would say. I think as much as I would like to see more youth come through, like I said, there's a lot more to go into what needs to for that to happen. Yes, Celtic need to take some of the blame, but I think Scottish football as a whole need to look at that and try and get a reserve league back. Do whatever needs to be done to get a reserve league back. But for the young boy Bonner, good to see him get his debut. It was nice at the end of the game the camera spanned off. It was I'm assuming it was family or whatever. He got to go over and have a wee chat with them and like wee hugs and that. So that was good to see. You can see it meant a lot to everybody. But no, it's maybe the fact that we're in such a commanding position. If he's shown that attitude that Rodgers is saying and talking about, maybe get some more camera rolls, maybe get a wee start here and there when the league's mathematically done and stuff. So we'll just say is the good thing is it doesn't seem like he's out of contract anytime soon. I mean, it just feels like we maybe get. I'm not saying I'm going to get overly excited about the boy, but it just seems to be chat about the next youth player, and he seems to go away. It's like, so I'm just hoping that's not going to happen.
Aye, well, that's what you have to be not careful as such, Gavin. But I mean, we've seen, like, say, Mitchell Frame come in last season. I think he played one game, and I've not really seen much of him since. I don't think he's. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think he's made another appearance for Celtic.
Yeah, he's no longer in the frame.
Oh.
Absolutely excellent. I love a good dad joke. Moving on swiftly. No, but I don't think he's made another appearance. I think, like Franny says, that there is opportunity for guys like Bonner to maybe get a few more games under their belt, a few more minutes, that bit of experience. I'm no overly thingweed with youth. If they come in and they do like what Kieran Tierney done and they're really good players and you can't ignore it and they definitely should be in the team, then it absolutely benefits Celtic. But I think he came in, the young lads, I say, he done well, and we'll see where it goes. But it is always nice to see these young guys who have been at the club since they were young boys get that chance, that opportunity.
Aye, absolutely. One of our he was coming on. I saw him training during the game, and I'm like, that's a player I've never seen before. I have next to zero knowledge of Celtic youth players, and yeah, saw him training, and then when he comes on in the second half, I'm like, well, this guy's clearly making his debut. So it was nice whenever the crowd got on their feet. And whenever the announcer says Jude Bonner making his Celtic debut, it's quite a nice feeling, you know. Like, we like to see that. And obviously, his family would have been a very, very proud moment. I'd read subsequently that he's been with Celtic since the age of 7. So if you just think of the journey that you've been on, you know, to keep plodding away, and then you get your chance, and that's still the start of the journey for him. You know, you don't know how his senior career is going to kind of pan out. In the game itself, there was just a few moments where he had the ball. He seemed to acquit himself fairly well. I didn't even know what position he was, but he kind of assumed a position of the right-sided of the midfield trio. And I was pleasantly surprised to see that he had a bit of height about him. He looks about 5'11", just from the way that I was sitting. He looks at least 5'11". So certainly he'll fill out, and he'll have a decent athleticism about him, presumably. But I was really, really happy for him. And the question is, will he get more game time between now and the rest of the season? You would like to think so. You would like to think so. But as Brendan Rodgers said, you need to be good enough. So he's obviously good enough to get his debut. But will he be good enough to continue playing with the senior team and getting more substitute appearances? It'd be great to see. However, it's always disheartening whenever you kind of come across a Celtic youth player and you're thinking, all right, maybe he'll forge a career. Like Daniel Cummings, he was the last guy that I'd heard of. He'd scored a barrel load of goals in the youth league, and then he signed a pre-contract with an English team.
It's West Ham.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you're like, aye, West Ham, you're right. And that's really, really disheartening. As soon as somebody comes on the radar, then they're away again. Who knows what's going to happen with the boy Bonner? We had high hopes for a few of his predecessors, like Vata, just never worked out. Who knows? But it's always nice to see somebody make their debut, and time will tell. Hopefully this time will be different. Hopefully he can actually become a next Callum McGregor, Kieran Tierney. But we'll see.
We'd all love to see that in an ideal world. But as you say, time will tell. Listen, I'm going to leave you with this comment because I need the toilet. But Gillian McAndrew has said, do you boys think Brendan Rodgers will sign another contract? I'll leave you to mull over that for a wee couple of minutes while I go to the toilet, all right?
Okay. Well, Franny, I was saying in the group chat after the Bayern Munich game that I felt that the performance of the Celtic players and what Brendan Rodgers showed with a team of those players at his disposal, he kind of he's able to say, that's my presentation, that's what I'm able to do with this Celtic team right now. If you support me, if you continue to support me and help me strengthen the squad, then think about what we can do. So I think that really, really strengthened his hand.
Yes.
And it's a double-edged sword because it gives him a lot of leverage to say, support me. I left last time because we hit that ceiling. And we saw it with Neil Lennon the first time round. And I think it might kind of hasten conflict between him and the board because it gives him the leverage to say, support me and I'll take the team further. But equally, if they don't support him, if they just kind of do what they historically have been doing, then it might say, okay, well, I'll see it my final third season, and then the contract is done. I've done all I can. We made progress in Europe by getting to the next playoff round, So, and I think Celtic fans won't be able to really complain at Rodgers for that. He will have, in a lot of people's eyes, he would have redeemed himself after the past time at Celtic and the way that he walked out on us. And he's probably fulfilled his mandate. If he wins the league again next season, picks up a couple of cups, brilliant. I think it's all about the board. If the board really, really want to push the boat out, obviously within their own financial means, then it might convince him to sign for a third season. Sign for a fourth season, do a contract extension. Maybe he's already made his mind up. Maybe he already knows what he wants to do, whether he wants to stay at Celtic or whether he wants to leave. Maybe this was really just a PR exercise, coming back and doing really well, but fulfilling his mandate within 3 seasons and leaving, and saying he can hold his head high in Glasgow whenever he returns back. He'll no longer be told. He'll no longer be called a rat because he's redeemed himself. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm probably siding with you in that, Gavin. I think the summer's a big question, really, and that'll answer a lot of the questions. Now, Rodgers may get backed, like you said, within the financial means of the club, and gets his. I mean, obviously, in the ideal world, he gets his number one player in every position that he targets. But the reality of that is you probably don't. You maybe get your second or third choice. But there might be a scenario where Rodgers, as we probably always, I know he done it last time, like in his first stint, he made comments that obviously didn't leave much to the imagination, saying on how happy or unhappy he was with certain transfer business being done. So I don't suspect he'll do that. Say he doesn't get the players that he wishes in the summer. I don't suspect he'll come out and kind of have a go at the board. I think he'll keep his counsel, like you say, see out his remaining year and essentially ride off to the sunset, probably another league championship winner. But a lot of credit in the bank in the sense of redeeming himself from the first time. Now, I totally understood I'm leaving first time around. Yes, I understand the other side of it where folk were a wee bit upset on the timing of it. Totally get, but I understood why Rodgers left. He'd made mumblings how he was unhappy in the January about the window, and obviously that summer window he wasn't very happy. And he probably was the first opportunity to get back down to England. We all say how good a manager he is, and he's a top manager, so he's going to challenge himself at the top table essentially. And by all accounts, he'd done barring one season where there was no investment in the Leicester team and he lost a few players. He actually had a very good time at Leicester. But I think if it gets back to an acceptable level in the summer, I can see a scenario where he does stay. Maybe just signs like a 1 year rolling contract, not necessarily another anything longer than that. But there is also the scenario where he does get what he wants and then leaves in the end of the free season because, well, I've done my contract. It's on news. It's just, I think we might be lucky in the sense that is there much of a clamber? I know Rodgers has got a property over in Spain and he speaks fluent Spanish. There just never ever seen an incline for him to go over there and manage. I don't know if there is, but I'm just thinking, is there much an incline for English teams really want to go for Rodgers again? And maybe we're going to be a wee bit lucky in that sense that obviously things can change in the next 12 months and stuff, what jobs could come available, but we might be lucky in the sense that I don't think many clubs down there will maybe want him, I feel like. It sounds silly saying that because I think he's a top manager, but I don't know if he's got as much credit in the bank down there anymore, which seems mental for me, but I do believe he will sign a new contract, but it might just be like a 1 year rolling thing.
If I'm being cynical, Franny, I think that, or maybe not cynical, but realistic, or maybe I'm just playing to my fears here. I think Rodgers probably already knows what he wants to do. And in terms of like, we are saying, well, what if
X, Y, and Z happens?
What if the board backs him this time because he's shown what he can do in the Champions League? That's my optimism talking. And maybe Brendan Rodgers is long enough in the tooth to know I'm dealing with Peter Lawwell here and his sidekick Nicholson. And maybe he's long enough in the tooth to know these guys
maybe devil's advocate here, Gavin. Last summer, I would argue Brendan Rodgers was backed, and the same guys were in charge then. So, I mean, he got a £6 million defender, a £9.5 million, if rumours are to believe, a £9.5 million striker that wasn't necessarily coming in to be the number one striker, and then £11 million in a midfielder.
That's a good point.
With Nicholson and Lawwell there, yes, history will tell you that there probably is windows you can look at where, maybe not necessarily Nicholson, because obviously he's, in relative terms, new into that position, but certainly Lawwell, there probably is windows where one summer we've backed the manager, and in the following season, not backed them. So I think they will back him in the summer, because like you touched on, just as Ross went away, Rodgers, his hand is, he's got a proper ace up his sleeve, I feel like, in the sense to say, I know he's backed me, and look what I've done. He's continued to back me. Maybe push the boat out a wee bit, like you said, Gavin, within their financial means. Like, I don't think areas are asking for £20 million players, but maybe just go into that upper bracket. Don't, if the team's asking for 10, maybe go to 10. Obviously, if you value it as 5, don't pay 10, but maybe just push the boat out a wee bit more, and then see what Rodgers can do. And like you say, he's shown what he can do this year in the Champions League. For all intents and purposes, I don't think the format will change anytime soon with the Champions League. I think that's here for a few seasons anyway. So
I think it's a 3-season cycle, that.
I think it will depend on how the big teams seem to do, and they might go back to the old style.
Aye. I think it's
the big teams.
I think it's in for 3 seasons.
So I think the board will. I mean, it's that once bitten, twice shy type carry on, but God knows how many times bitten them or that I actually honestly believe the board will back Rodgers in the summer. Apart from last summer, I have nothing else to back that up with, I suppose.
Well, see, for me, I feel like the first window that Rodgers, I was going to say enjoyed, but absolutely didn't enjoy it. When he came back to Celtic, was abysmal. But I feel like there was there was
Couldn't
obviously
rock the boat, I
reasons. Aye, and Rodgers is coming in, he's assessing the squad, and then he's getting these names put to him, and listen, you're no privy to it, but it was not a good window, we can now say with hindsight. But they did sign players that they were all shite, and that was down to, or most of them were shite. That was down to obviously Mark Law being poor at his job. We go into the January window and we sign Kuhn. I don't think we brought in Ida on loan. So you could say, in essence, it was a decent window. Obviously, with hindsight, when you see what these players have went on to do, more so Ida in his loan spell, he's obviously shown signs, but not great. But then last summer, I feel like he was backed really well. And then in the January window, I don't think that Rodgers is by any stretch disillusioned with Peter Law or this board at the minute in terms of being back. I feel like he was very, very disappointed, like a lot of us were, on that, not getting that other striker in. But I still feel like, and I think that the evidence is there now in the games that we've seen since the window closed, that I feel like getting Rodgers in, Jota, sorry, getting Jota in, albeit we didn't get that striker, I'm still, and I feel like Rodgers is still fairly happy in that, right, okay, we didn't get the striker I wanted. For whatever reason it was, there was factors, I think they sort of touched upon that to an extent after the window closed. There was a reason the guy they were going for, whoever it was, it didn't happen. It's disappointing, of course it is, but I don't think that Rodgers is disillusioned, and I think he's okay with his position right now. I agree with you, Gavin. There is probably a high chance that Rodgers already knows what he's going to do. I feel like that is what Franny said. I think that he might sign a 1-year rolling contract, but again, it does hinge on what we do in the summer. But if we go and win a treble this season, and we've shown the progression that we've shown in Europe this season, if this board, and I think they will, but if this board don't back Rodgers in the way that he deserves and he should be backed, and obviously that's within reason. It's not, to what, the greatest respect, what some Celtic supporters want and probably think we should do, but within reason. And I feel like in my head, I know, what I'm thinking is within reason is probably what Rodgers thinks is within reason. I feel like that would align, and that sounds really arsey and ball-headed, but it's no meant to come across like that. But I feel like if this board don't back him to what he thinks is within reason, then I would be fuming. And I'm one of the more, as you know, I'll always see the good in things, or try to see the good in things, or try to see an alternative sort of view. But if they don't back him, certainly how I see is within reason, I'll be raging. And I wouldn't blame Rodgers if he went. But for what it's worth, I think that they will, especially if we go on and win the treble. And obviously, we've already shown that progression in Europe. As much as people say, oh, it's the format City does, it has to an extent, but we've still won games at the top table in Europe, and there's no easy games. So, to sum up, I feel like Rodgers probably will stay beyond his contract, but that might just be hope on my part. I don't know. But will we move on for that? That was actually, it went on longer than what I thought.
That was good.
But it was a good wee sort of digress for the plan. But where were we? We were just at Bonner before that. So I want to touch on, now this is just a link that I seen come up. I'm sure it was actually Quinny at Celts Are Here that shared it. It's like a link / rumour. I don't know if there's any truth in it or whatever, but Gavin will come to you. A rumour that Celtic are looking at Ellie Johan, Hibs, I don't know if he plays off the left or he's a central striker. I'm not 100% sure. But what I do know is he's very, very fast. Do you think would you be on board with that? Well, let me put the question to you this way: would you be on board with that? Eli Johan just coming into Celtic. Would you be on board with that if Celtic offloaded Maeda and he was his sort of replacement, if you like? And that, by the way, this is me only asking that because I think that he plays off the left and can play through the middle, but I'm not 100% sure. If you can enlighten me on that, then by all means.
I was watching his YouTube clips today because you said you were going to mention him. Didn't know who he was, but as soon as I googled him, I'm like, the Hibs guy. The YouTube clips showed most of them playing off the right. However, if you actually said selling Maeda and bringing in Yuan, that would give me nightmares, mate. Nightmares.
That's why I asked.
Apparently, now, the boy is injured right now. He's been out for a few weeks. He's 25 years old. He's French. Hibs bought him from Nantes for about 500 grand a season or two ago. I've got no idea if the guy is injury prone or if he's just having a bit of bad luck right now. But he's only had one goal this season, 12 league games, I think, and a couple of assists. However, his YouTube clips, they were quite impressive looking goals for Hibs. A lot of counter attacking, exploiting space. He's got pace to burn, and he looked really impressive. If you were to compare him to like Yang, for example, he's got more physicality than Yang, more raw pace, stronger as well, able to kind of bounce off defenders or try to kind of like shoulder barge him. In terms of like two-footedness, he seems kind of limited that way, very much predominantly right-footed. And I know that we like to play, if you're a right footer, we would like to play on the left wing to cut in on the right, to be the inverted winger. So it doesn't look to be a case that he's ever maybe done that before. He just looks to be a predominantly right winger. But again, the YouTube clips are just about him kicking ass. I can't really get feedback for the Hibs fans about what he doesn't do well, what his work rate is, what his mentality is like. Is he up for some games and not up for others? And the fact that he's only kind of coming onto our radar at the age of 25. So what's happened between now and the start of his career? It's not for me. It's not for me. I think if I was to go for any football player for the Hibs, I'd probably go for Martin Boyle, who's maybe in the wrong side of 30 right now, but he's got that experience. Not that I would say that I would go for Martin Boyle, but I just think that he's a more experienced player and he's still got pace. But no, I've checked him out, and from the limited clips, I can see he looks good. He's got pace, but I think maybe for Celtic we're looking for a higher caliber player, and we need to do more in-depth homework if we're going to sign a player. We don't want to be doing these project 2 million signings. So no for me.
I would probably tend to agree with that. I've seen bits and pieces of the guy, only off of games where we've played Hibs, or I've maybe watched a Edinburgh derby, and he looks a decent player. I mean, he's not fantastic, but I agree with you in the sense that, okay, he could come in as a squad player. I'm not having him, obviously, as a replacement for Maeda, not by any stretch. You do need that type of player who is a squad player, but at the same time, I look at it. You're saying he plays off the right, then. So are we signing him and getting rid of Yang? Is he much better than Yang? It's hard to say. What's your thoughts on it, Franny?
I mean, for me, well, I probably wouldn't take him. What I've seen him in, has had good moments. I think he's had a couple of good moments against us last season, but I think this season, something tells me he had a bit of a checkered season in the sense of his attitude was maybe a bit an issue. I think he was maybe looking for a move away. It didn't happen. Then he was finding to sell out the team. There's also a moment that maybe due to the fact that Hibs were on a horrendous run at the start of the season, but Hibs then got a man sent off and he was doing keepy-uppies at the side of the park. I think they were 3-0 down at the time or something and just had a player sent off and he's sitting doing keepy-uppies. But the optics don't look great, but I think he was maybe guilty of the fact that Hibs just were losing every week at that time and it was just anything and everything they could moan at. It was probably one of the reasons. And with Gavin saying maybe that he plays off the right, it just feels like it's a like for like with Yang. I would be more inclined to stick with Yang and just say, well, you're clearly not bringing Johan in to start. Well, we're obviously hoping Kuhn doesn't leave, but if Kuhn leaves and Johan's your option, then I think that answers the question to Rodgers extended his contract. if that's the go-to.
That's the Malumbu sign.
That's the McGinn and Malumbu one,
isn't
it? But for me, it's if you're bringing him in as backup, I don't see the point in that. You're as well as sticking with Yang and try to give him another season and see if he works out. I don't really see it. But I'm kind of similar to Gav. If you're going for anybody at Hibs, I would go for Martin Boyle. But like I say, at 32, he maybe want to come in and he's not going to be first choice and probably not even second choice. So I don't see that one happening. The boy Kieran Bowie, he's a decent enough player, but I know Rodgers kind of spoke about the third choice striker being a young boy. Just with this topic of Hibs players, he's maybe one I would look at for that third choice striker. I feel like obviously that's enforcing. I say forcing, that would be of the assumption that Maeda's predominantly we're only thinking of him as a left winger and you're bringing Ida and somebody else and then Bowie as the third choice. But Elliot for me in my personal opinion is a non-starter.
Listen, I don't know if there's any truth in it. It was just something I've seen. Thought it would be a bit of a talking point, but I mean, I see this comment. Where's it went? I've probably lost it. Irishman 1916 says, let's not forget we got Riordan and Allen from Hibs. What a car wreck that was. Yes, it was. But then for every Riordan and Allen, there's a Scott Brown and Didier Agat. So it's one of the ones.
The matter is, Riordan was a really good player, wasn't he?
Brilliant player.
Seemed to be mad rumours about him and Strachan's daughter or something going about that was the reason he didn't get in the team.
I mean, we're not privy to that, Francis. Let's not start rumours. But we'll move on for that. I just thought
somebody in the comments there, P. McLaughlin talked about John Collins for Hibs as well. He was no bad player.
He was decent. He was.
See, whenever you say Scott Allen and car wreck in the same sentence, did you guys know that he was in a high-profile car crash?
I did not.
No. Say okay. I hope I've not made a sick joke here.
He was on Clyde one the night. He's all right.
This was 10
I know he does that. Like
it was 10 years ago. He was driving a car and he hit a pedestrian, and there was a fee of 6 million in damages, which I would imagine his insurance had to pay out 6 million in damages towards the pedestrian who had devastating head injuries. So just because somebody said car crash and Scott Allen in the same sentence, I was just wondering if you were aware of the truth behind that.
I wonder if they were.
Not at all.
I wonder if they were. Anyway, listen, we'll move on for that, and I'll come to yourself, Gavin. It was announced today that the fans will be back for the Glasgow Derby. I think the allocation, if I'm right, is about 4,000, which is just over half of what the original allocation was. Are you happy? Have you found, obviously you go to the games, have you found that you've enjoyed the experience of the derbies better without the Rangers fans being inside Celtic Park, or do you find that it's been missing something not having them in? And I mean, if anything, we're probably going to go to Ibrox with 4,000 fans in Ibrox having already won the league title, which is nice.
Yeah. I'm for it, okay? I'm for it. I grew up watching Celtic getting beat by Rangers most of the time in the 90s, and I remember them rubbing it in our faces at Parkhead, and that was tough to take. However, you stick with it, and then you see the good times whenever we're at Parkhead and we are romping victories, 5-1, 6-2, stuff like that. And probably one of the most memorable in recent times was, without the Rangers fans, was a 3-0 game at Parkhead under the lights when Hatate scored the 2 goals. And that was a magical night. And it was all Celtic fans, and felt like a one-off at that moment, So I've seen the worst of it, the best of it, but on balance, I'm happy that there's a semblance of away fans coming back in. Part of it is from a selfish perspective, because I have never been to Ibrox for a Celtic and Rangers game. I've been to Ibrox for a Celtic game, ironically, and like cup games back in the 90s. But I want to be an away Celtic fan at Ibrox one of these times when we beat them on their own turf. Never had a ticket. Probably be like gold dust. I might never get the opportunity, but yeah, I think I know a lot of people are like, no, I don't want them anywhere near Parkhead, and fair enough, because you've had a taste of what it's like without it, and if that's your opinion, fair play. I can't disagree with you. Just my own personal preference. I don't mind them being back. It probably adds a wee bit to the atmosphere, because if you're bragging rights, you can laugh at them, and you can look at them like ugly animals in a zoo, which is what it feels like at Parkhead. Yeah, I'm an advocate for it. I'm happy that it's kind of coming back. It's not coming back to the full allocation like what it was, but it's better than like 400 or whatever. So yeah, I'm happy.
Aye, I would agree with everything you've said there, to be honest with you. Listen, I obviously don't go to the games now, but me and Franny used to go together previously, and when we did, we sat pretty much right next to the Rangers fans. We were in the Lisbon line stand. You're talking maybe 10 seats, then it was the police. 5 to 10 seats, then it was the police, and then it was the Rangers fans. So you were getting verbals, and we were giving verbals. And listen, being that close to them, and it goes on both sides, by the way, but you're looking at the Rangers fans and you're seeing what they're doing, and there is really, really dark, horrible aspects. I seen one thing that I'm not even going to describe on here. It was so bad, but out with that's not minor incidents, but I think the good what the atmosphere the fans bring to the atmosphere, and the to and fro, and the banter as well, essentially. I think that far outweighs the dark sort of things that go on, and I've seen myself. I'm delighted that the fans are back. It's 4,000. I think that's right.
I think it's 2.5, mate. I think it's 2.5.
It's a percentage. It's
4% of this.
Right.
This. I think it works out to about 2.5. But it could be wrong.
Right. Maybe I've heard 4% and just in my brain I've said 4,000, but it doesn't matter. There's some fans back anyway. I would like to see it go back to the full allocation of what it was before. Maybe in time that'll happen. But for me personally, I'm delighted that the fans are back. But again, like Gavin, Franny, I wouldn't disagree with guys that don't want Rangers fans anywhere near Celtic Park. But I want Celtic to go and play at Ibrox and have fans supporting them. I think that's, for me, I think that's huge in helping the team get an away victory there.
I know, totally. I mean, like you, I'm similar. The folk that don't want them back, totally get it, because one, psychologically, must be a massive boost for the fans, and not as it's going to totally put professional footballers in their shell, but it might just give you that wee extra couple of percent, that wee edge, even just at the start of the game, because we'll talk about how big these games are. Like, if you start well, it can mean a lot in these fixtures. So if the stadium's full of your own fans, that wee extra bit might make some of the opposition players a wee bit nervy, a wee bit on edge, and you just get the better start out of that. So I totally understand fans that say they don't want it back. But I'm a wee bit traditionalist, like used to, like you touched on, Rossi. We were right next to that old allocation when I think it was round about the 8,000 they had at the time, and we seen the good and the bad, and that's just with the results at the end of the day. Because it was the best seat in the world if you won, it was the worst seat in the world if you got beat. Because just even not that we generally didn't matter what the game was, we generally didn't leave early unless we really had to leave. There was something that we had to get home for, but there was times we were maybe sitting there and you're getting beat 3-0, 4-1 or whatever, and we, just out of spite, we would not have guys that we'd probably never ever see in our life again, but we would not let them have the satisfaction of seeing us getting up and leaving the game early. It was almost like our Clemonts. It was our wee moral victory on the days when Rangers absolutely turned us heavy. Me and my sister would sit there and Big McCall would be like, "We're not leaving. We're sitting to the very end, and we will leave on our terms at the end of the day." So anything that could, anything's better than nothing in my eyes. We've said it plenty of times that we'd like the old allocation. How easy that is, I don't know. With the fact that obviously some of the tickets in that area will be season ticket holders now, but I think Anthony Dunn had said that there is a sort of a caveat in that area to say that you can be moved at short notice, whether at Ibrox that's of a similar nature. But anything that's getting towards that, I mean, the 700 just felt pointless, absolutely pointless at the end of the day. So anything that's getting back towards the old allocation, will we get the old allocation back? I don't know. Just done a Dean Saunders there after ripping Gav for it, but there we go. But in an ideal world, the old allocation would be fantastic, but it's a step towards that. I feel it might be the best we'll get, and I'm okay with that. I think as a spectacle, it will look a lot better. Just seeing Rangers fans there, but I just think it does add to it. Let's not be daft. It does add to it.
Aye, it definitely does. By the way, I'm quite interested to. Obviously, I don't know the exact number. You said something like 2,500 there.
It's 4% of the stadium capacity, so I think that works out to about 2.5.
Right. Well, I'll be quite interested to see where the Celtic fans get put in Ibrox. I would imagine it would be is it the Brimlawn stand?
I'm assuming it'll be similar to how the European games are. That's all I can guess at.
Aye, listen, time will tell on that. Just to finish off on that, right? I spoke about obviously the banter that you get. Obviously, there's the dark side of it, but there is great banter as well. And as I say, me and Franny sat really close to the Rangers fans, so much so that you could give them verbals and you could almost have a conversation with them. We were so close to them. But it was one time, I'm sure we won the game. But there was a guy, you'll remember,
with a black leather jacket.
Aye, he had this black leather jacket on, right? It was horrific, man. Even back then, we're talking maybe 10, 12 years ago, it was just an awful jacket, right? And me and Franny were giving him absolute pelters for his jacket, right? And you just think, that's fine, but the police are there and that, we're big hard men giving him pelters when all the police and that are there. It wasn't even a week later. I think the game was like the Saturday or the Sunday, and we went to Noel Gallagher at Edinburgh Castle on the Wednesday, and we were queuing to go to the toilet. And I says to Franny, "Fuck's sake, mate, that's that boy for the game. And he had the same jacket on." He was about 4 or 5 foot in front of us. Arse absolutely fell out, both of us. We're like, what if he recognises us? Absolutely brick it. Turns out he didn't recognise us, we got away with it. But you've never seen the arse falling out of 2 guys as much in your life. It was hilarious. But the banter was brilliant that day, and the guy took it well. But I mean, he wasn't fazed because he wore that jacket to Noel Gallagher on the Wednesday. What a guy. But anyway, we'll move on for that. And I want to touch on, I think it was actually Gavin that brought this in when he joined the podcast on this day. I quite enjoy it. It's a really good kind of feature you brought to it. So, excuse me, again. So on this day in 2009, Shinsuke Nakamura was top boy in a 7-0 home win over St Mirren, who were going to be playing obviously tomorrow, which is quite fitting. He got a hat-trick in the 7-0 win on the 16th, 35th and 58th minute. And Mark Rosas incidentally scored in that game as well. And the other goal was an OG. Scott Brown got 2 in that day as well. But Nakamura, to seal the hat-trick, it was a trademark free kick, absolutely postage stamp, top corner, almost in the position where he scored the free kick, Gavin, against Man United at Celtic Park. It was a fantastic free kick. Keeper, he dived for it, but there was no point. And then Mark Rosas, he had I don't know if you remember this goal. It was a long range volley. It was an absolute screamer. I watched it last night. Obviously, when I looked that up, I thought I'm going to have a look at that game. It was a tremendous half volley. Keeper never got anywhere near it. The team that day, we started with Boric in goal. Left back was Naylor, McManus, Caldwell, Hinklet right back, with Nakamura on the right, Crosas and Brown and McGeady on the left, and then Hesselink and McDonald up front. A 7-0 victory, but obviously we briefly spoke about Nakamura earlier on in the podcast, but I'll just question to both these. I'll start with yourself, Gavin. Just your memories of Nakamura. I know I didn't envisage that we would touch upon him slightly before that, but I'm just going to go with it because there is probably so many good memories that you can talk about with Nakamura.
I was there for his debut. It was I don't know if it was against kind of Motherwell or Dundee United, but he was just so eager, and you could tell straight away from his touch that he was a quality player, and we were really excited about him. And buying a player, a midfielder from Italy at that time, you kind of got the impression that he was going to have something about him. Nakamura was just a fantastic player for Celtic, different from what we had. I don't know if you could say we've had a player like Nakamura since he left. Obviously, Lubo came before Nakamura, but if you were to compare anyone to Nakamura, it might be Lubo. Just the way that he could manipulate a ball and his IQ in a game, it was something to behold. Just a brilliant player and an absolute technician, and somebody who was dedicated to his craft. We spoke about the Japanese trio and their kind of character, their culture in Japan, and how they're like the utmost professionals. You're not going to get like a Japanese Gaza in terms of like his mentality, like getting drunk, like smoking and stuff like that, taking drugs. Japanese are just so dedicated to what they do, and Nakamura was so disciplined, and he's just a great fucking player for Celtic. Really good. And as we spoke about it earlier on, he gained global recognition from what he did in the Champions League for Celtic. And he's a hero back in Japan, I think it's a bit like in South Korea, where they worship like Sejong Park, or Jisung Park, Christ, butchered that. Franny spoke about Honda in Japan, and he spoke about Nakata. Nakamura's come up there as well. An absolute hero, and I was just we're kind of blessed to see him pull on the hoops for Celtic. If only we had him for longer, but just a brilliant player.
Yeah, he was fantastic. He really was. I've never seen. We've seen guys like Beckham. Who was the guy at Lazio? Mihailovic.
Mihailovic.
special free kick takers.
Yeah.
Special free kick takers. I honestly put him in that bracket, absolutely. Possibly even better than guys like Beckham at a dead ball situation. I'm not saying he's a better player than Beckham, even Mihailovic, but dead ball, free kick.
And the goal against
Certainly
Rangers.
nobody.
Mhm.
Oh man, what a goal! The one played outside of the boot, fantastic goal, unbelievable. He scored so many great goals, but Franny, I'll come to yourself on Nakamura. Listen, he scored obviously the Man United free kick. He scored the one at Old Trafford, but a great moment for me was when he scored the free kick at Rugby Park. We're trying to win the league that day. We need the victory. He comes up with the goods in the very last minute. I remember being in the pub and just running all around the lounge thinking, I can't believe he's done it. He's come up with that moment. He was a fabulous player for an A.
And it feels like he had quite a few goals against Kilmarnock and free kicks.
Aye.
I don't know if that's just in the back, but just obviously off in the back of that league winning one. But he was a really top player. And it's funny when we're talking about Engels, how sometimes you can be the best player and be brilliant, but you need that big moment against Rangers. And for all Nakamura's good, I think he'd had the 2 goals against Man United at this point, but there was still that wee thing where some folk in the media, it's like he's not had his moment against Rangers. Then he obviously gets that goal in that game. But it was so cultured, like Gavin said. His IQ was brilliant. His touch was absolutely frightening at times. And I can remember as well another hat-trick he scored against Dundee United, and I think his third one, it was kind of just at the edge of the box, just sort of the left-hand side of the box, and he just chipped the goalkeeper. And the keeper was only about 3 yards off his line. The keeper wasn't miles out, and he just chipped it over him. He was absolutely...
Who was that against, did you say, Frank?
Dundee, I'm sure it was Dundee United at Parkhead.
I'm going to look that one up.
I'm sure he scored a hat-trick at Parkhead against Dundee United.
I'm not doubting you. I can't remember it myself.
I'm sure the hat-trick goal it chipped the goalkeeper, and the keeper was only about 2-3 yards off his line. It was a really good goal. But like you say, when he came in, it was well thought of over in Japan now. Japan obviously had good players back then, but I think globally now they're obviously a better football team nationally anyway. But it was kind of... It was a superstar, if you like. Not saying he was world class, but I think he was a superstar in the sense of his global, well, his appeal over in Japan and things like that, and what he kind of brought to Celtic in terms of reaching out to that sort of area of the world and stuff. And we maybe didn't exploit it. I feel like, for a better term, we maybe didn't exploit it better and to sort of market it better, I feel like. But no, Nakamura, absolutely top player, and will ever be remembered as a well for Celtic. And I think he only recently retired. I feel like I heard that somewhere that he's just retired a couple of years ago. I feel like I've heard that.
Aye, you're right enough. I think he was still playing at about 42-year-old. Obviously back in Japan, but I mean, I think obviously guys like Nakamura, obviously you and Gavin had mentioned Nakata and somebody else. I think they sort of flourished off the back of the 2002 World Cup. I think it was Japan and Korea, and Japan done really well in that World Cup from it, or was it Korea? I think Japan done all right, but actually Korea got to the semi-final, or South Korea. But that for then on, I feel like Japan really, they made a real big effort in a footballing sense, and I think now, obviously, that national team, their performance in the last World Cup, are seeing the fruits of that labour, and Celtic are benefiting off it. Not only with Nakamura in the early stages of that, but now with the guys we have. Obviously, that was down to Ange, not the board and the recruitment team, because they're shite Monday. But anyway, no, but Nakamura was a fantastic player for Celtic, and I thought that was quite fitting, obviously, because we're playing St Mirren. But I really enjoy that feature, Gavin. It was a good one to bring to the podcast. But we'll move on for that, and we'll go back to, before we look ahead to obviously the St Mirren game, we'll go back to the teaser answers. I don't know. Listen, the guys can put it in the comments, but we'll come to you one, but I think there's seven left. So I'll just come to you one by one. You give one answer each if you want. I'll start with yourself, Randy. You look pretty eager there.
4?
No.
What? I thought he was a banker, man. I feel like he played with about 20 Premiership teams.
Yeah,
was that the 4 that you said? Aye.
Aye.
He was one on my list that I was going to ask. Right. Andy Cole.
Yep.
Had him. Darius for sale?
No.
Oh. I've only got one more guess.
What was that, Gavin?
Craig Bellamy.
Craig Bellamy's he's on the list. I feel like Nick Knowles here.
My only other guess is Robbie Keane after this.
Yes, he's on the list, Francis.
Well done.
I've knocked after that because my 2 other bankers I thought are away.
You got 1, 2, 3, 4 to get.
5.
Right, so we've got Andy Cole, we've got Bellamy, we've got
Darren Bent,
Crouch,
Peter Crouch, and Robbie Keane.
What about Teddy Sheringham?
Honestly,
no. I'll give you a bit of a clue. There's 2 players that you're going a bit further back with, and then the other 2 are probably like early
Nicholas Anelka.
Yeah.
Really?
Well done,
six Premiership players?
Six.
Premiership teams?
Aye.
Was it
He was a
Bolton, Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City, Chelsea?
Mm-hmm.
So that's 5 already.
Aye. And I want to say West Brom.
It was.
Maybe not.
It was. He did rock up at West Brom because I've actually watched the Nicholas Anelka documentary on Netflix. It's pretty good.
Aye.
Brilliant player.
Oh, brilliant player.
Right, so 3 to get.
Anymore?
3 to get. I mean, I'm saying no, but because I just put Nicholas Anelka out for anywhere there.
Let's try and give these a bit of a clue. Right, one of them.
Right. So to P. McLaughlin, what's the question? You've got 9 players who played for 6 different English
Scored.
9.
Scored.
Aye.
Scored.
2 seconds. I'll get the question. I've lost it now. Right. Which P. McLaughlin or anybody else? Which 9 players have scored for 6 different English Premier League clubs? We have Andy Cole, Craig Bellamy, Darren Bent, Peter Crouch, Robbie Keane, Nicholas Anelka. So we've got 3 to get.
So good question, by the way. So is this from 1992 onwards?
I would. Well, looking at the answers, I would say aye. As aye.
Okay.
Right. I'll give you a bit of a clue just to speed things along a wee bit. Right. So this player, 2 of the clubs were Spurs and Newcastle. Might even be QPR in there.
Les Ferdinand?
Yeah.
Didn't think he'd played with enough teams, mate.
I don't know the other ones, but that's the 3 that I know.
Did not think he'd played with enough teams.
There's another one that played with about 75 teams.
That should be easy then,
What, Gavin?
Ferdinand, he was a brilliant player. I don't suppose Robbie Fowler wouldn't be one, no?
No, it's a good guess, to be fair.
Aye, because he's played with a few, hasn't he? He's at Leeds as well.
For every Darren Bent, there's a...
Marcus Bent.
Aye.
You're feeding us now.
I know. One to get.
And I bet is the one to get the one that's played with about 17 teams. He said.
Aye, he's played with a lot. Like
Jesus, man. Feel like that
he's
should
won,
be easy.
he's won a couple of the clubs.
Giving it away now, aren't you?
Well,
Would the nationality get away? Aye.
no, it probably wouldn't. No, but I'll give you the nationality if you want. What we got in the comments? Sorry, I went
I'm
on
actually
them.
got
I
to read
just
off.
got sidetracked there. Fowler.
I didn't think he's played one off, mate.
Noah, Sturridge. None of them are right. You've got one to get, guys.
We've tried Defoe, we've tried Fowler,
Aye.
and we've already said Sheringham.
I've just
Can I
got the next to me here.
Can I ask,
Fuck.
was he white?
Yes.
Guess who now?
Okay. Did he have a beard? Did he wear contacts?
Harold Bratback.
Oh,
Was he English?
he was English, aye.
Right, come on, man. We should get this.
Very decent player, by the way. Very decent player. I would say he played late 90s, early 90s.
English. Played with tons of teams.
I'm
Do you want a
burning
couple of
calories
clubs?
right now thinking.
Aye.
Couple of clubs.
Go
I think
for
this
it.
might give it away.
Maybe give some of the lesser ones in, I don't know.
Well, it's the only two I can remember off the top of my head. Everton
right.
and Middlesbrough.
Andy Johnson.
No.
Oh.
Dwight York's wrong, Monty. Andy Carroll's wrong, Tommy 55.
Andy Johnson, that was a shout.
Kubu is
Middlesbrough
wrong,
and
P.
Everton.
McLaughlin.
They're going for people that are obviously
Sorry.
not like
I didn't actually realise how good a question this was going to be.
Yeah, Kubu.
Middlesbrough, that's going to annoy me. Middlesbrough. Obviously not Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank then.
No.
He played in
I feel
Middlesbrough,
like he
didn't
maybe... Did he have Liverpool on his CV? I need to Google that.
What's his name? I'll tell you.
Aye.
Wasn't he Franny Jeffels?
No.
Oh. I think he's been at the two clubs as well, take off.
Do you want all his clubs?
A Middlesbrough striker.
I did have Liverpool on his CV. Do you want all his clubs?
Everton and
No,
Liverpool
not yet.
and Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
No, yeah. It Everton,
Everton.
Liverpool, and Middlesbrough on his CV. Aye.
Played for both Merseyside.
Both, aye.
What an absolute prostitute of a player.
Oh, he was. But he was decent. He was very decent.
They must have it must be a lot of loan moves in there then if it's quite a lot of clubs.
Played for Liverpool.
He was
and
durable
Everton.
and just he had a really long career. He was a good player.
Gareth Barry.
No,
So confident.
this could
with
go
that
on
there,
all night.
I was
Yeah,
so
you're
confident
right,
with
you're
that there too. And I think he was playing well after the noughties. The early
Right, I'm
noughties.
going to give these all the clubs, right?
Right, go for
So
it.
we've got Middlesbrough, Everton, Liverpool. We've got Spurs, Leeds, Forest, and Hull.
Was that in order?
Well, I'll give you it in order. He started at Spurs, went to Borough, Everton, then for Everton to Liverpool. Wow, that's wild. Then for Liverpool to Leeds, to Forest, and he finished his career. He played with Hull. Wow, from 2004 to 2012. I didn't think he played as late as that.
Is it Peter Beardsley?
No. So he started his career in 1992 at Spurs and he finished it in
20 years
2012
later?
at Hull. 20 years later at Hull.
Dean Windass?
No.
Was he a striker? Was he a centre forward?
He was attacking midfielder / winger, according to Wikipedia. I remember him playing wide, though, on the right.
I feel like the Everton and Liverpool should really be jumping out.
He's one of the initials for
Can't it be
Foxtrot.
many folk that done that?
Wait, Everton to Liverpool to Everton, Everton to Liverpool.
Can't it be many folk
Everton
done
to
that?
Liverpool, aye. Everton to Liverpool it was.
Who makes that?
He only played 32 times for Liverpool, so he wasn't like a prominent big player for
Strong.
Liverpool, but he
Was he speedy?
no, I wouldn't
It's not
say he
really
was
like it.
rapid. No, I wouldn't say he was rapid. He was just one of the just good pros. Nothing spectacular about him. He was just a good pro.
Jesus Christ, man. We're going
Oh.
to be hypnotised.
Right, well,
Somebody got it.
have you got the comments up?
No, I've not.
No. Right, well, Tommy55 has got it. Well done.
Oh, I'm so tempted to put the comments on.
Aye, I can see
Aye.
the comment. Aye.
You can see the comment.
I would never have got that. I would never have got
Aye.
that. Blonde-haired guy, wasn't he?
Aye.
I would never have got that.
Blonde hair.
I don't think you'll get it, Fran, to be honest.
Why was I got to say Nicky Weaver? He's a keeper.
That player, I remember him from his Newcastle days.
I was also close with one of the names, and I've got to say Nicky, but
Well done, Tommy. 55 getting it though. That was a tough one. Google worked well for you, kid.
Barn was his name Barn? Nicky Barnby?
Oh, Nick Barnby. That's the
Nick
one,
Barnby.
aye. That's the one, kid.
I mean, I feel like I've kind of looked onto that, but I've got to say Nicky Weaver for some random reason
Aye,
because the guy said blonde hair.
You never got it, but I
No.
enjoyed that. That was good.
Aye,
He's
That was
done
a good
well,
one.
to be fair. He's got, I don't know, like 6.
I wouldn't have got
5,
Marcus
6.
Bent. Marcus Bent, I would never have got Marcus Bent.
nah, I wouldn't have got Marcus
No,
Bent.
I
I'd have never
don't.
guessed
To
him.
be fair, obviously I seen the answers. I think I'd have got Cole, probably Bellamy, Crouch, Keane, maybe Anelka. I wouldn't have got them all. It was a tough one. It was a hard question.
It's good. It's good.
But aye, so we'll move on to the St Mirren game. Franny will come to your cell. It's a 5:30 kickoff, so I'm assuming it's on Premier Sports. I wouldn't
Sky,
see
mate.
the game. I would.
It's on Sky.
Oh, it's on Sky, is it? I just assumed that was a
it's
weird
on
time. Aye, I won't see the game myself. I'm got a day out tomorrow. I'm going to the Corn Exchange in Edinburgh for some for hang or something. Sharon and their pals organised it, and all the
Oh, that's right.
husbands are going along. So I'm going to that. I'll miss the game, sadly. But 5:30 kickoff. Just how you think the game will go and your scoring lineup predictions.
Well, I was borderline going to miss the first half as well because the oldest daughter's having to do an enrolment thing for the chapel, and it's 5:30 on Saturday or Sunday morning, so I've picked the Sunday morning one so I can see the football.
You're a man after my own cart, kid.
But I mean, I'm confident we'll get the win, but I don't think it'll be an easy game. St Mirren are playing well. Obviously went to Ibrox last week, and I know Rangers have been a bit of a basket case this season. But at home domestically, they've got a really good record at home this season. But like you touched on earlier, the two strikers, they're an absolute handful, and that they're pacey as well. They're not just two big battering rams, if you like. They're pacey. They're good the ball, and St Mirren aren't a bad team. Boy Robinson's had them playing well for a wee while and all that, and he's done really well. And obviously, being at home and stuff, say the onus will be on them to come out and attack. It won't necessarily be that, but I think it'll be a tricky game. But I'm confident we'll get the win. I've got to go. I'll go 3-1, and my lineup would be Schmeichel, obviously. Alisson. No, I've not seen how Brendan Rodgers press conference. There's no injuries I need to think about.
Same as.
Alistair Johnson, Carter Vickers, Trusty, and I would go with Sloop in there. And I know obviously that's
Taylor's available again, by the way. So
it's just obviously his girl had the baby, and it's just you don't know
he's
how
back
the
in the
sleeping
squad.
is.
He is back in the squad.
You just don't know how he is. We sleep in the first couple of nights. It just could be running on empty. So that's my only real reason for putting Sloop in at the end of the day.
He's better.
My middle three, I think it picks it together against Hatate, Engels, and McGregor. And up front, because it's not a massive park, but there's a bit of me, as silly as this sounds, want to maybe punt for Jota, Kuhn, and Ida. I'm got to go with that just for Jota to kind of cross it in for get decent crossing, but I didn't see a situation where my head doesn't play. That's the problem. But that's maybe that's the front three I would go with.
I get what you're saying on the Maeda one. Personally, I would go with that front three you've said. I would go Jota, Ida, and Kuhn. We're going to be going to, obviously, well, that's the start of it now, one game a week, which is having it's disappointing. I like a wee midweek Celtic game. It breaks the week up. I really enjoy it. But guys have put in really good shift in recent months. Give some good days, bad days. But for me, I think this game at St Mirren, it's a really tricky game. As tricky as the Hibs game. The only thing I would say in our favour is we're not coming off the back of Bayern Munich away this time, which gives us a hell of a better chance than what we did at Easter Road. I don't think AMD was surprised that we dropped points at Easter Road. Didn't think we'd lose. Didn't think we'd perform as poorly as we did in the first half. But hey ho, how do you feel the game's going to go in your scoring lineup predictions?
Well, Ross, according to the stats, St Mirren are 7th in the league, and looking at their last 5 games, they've only won once. So they lost. They lost at home to St Johnstone 1-0. Following game in the Cup, 1 each against Hearts. Following game, nothing each at home to Hibs. But then, all in our memories, they beat Rangers 2-0 away at Ibrox. And then most recently, they lost again away from home in Edinburgh 3-1 to Hearts. But see all that, only 1 win in 5 games, all that goes out the window whenever we visit them, man. Stephen Robinson is a wily operator. I think, see if Rangers, obviously they didn't, but see if they were to go for a manager in our league, I think Stephen Robinson would be the pick of the bunch. They're not going to go for Derek McInnes. But anyway, it's going to be a difficult one, and I think we've been okay in Paisley the last few seasons, but we really need to work for it. And Franny makes a great point, because I think ordinarily with that tight pitch, you'd probably want Ida and then 2 proper natural wingers with Kuhn and Jota. But it's so difficult to know that Maida's in the form of his life right now. So how do you drop Maida for Ida? But on paper,
especially now you're not. Sorry, Gavin. I was just going to say, especially now that you're not trying to conserve energy for other games. It's 1 game a week now. Carry on. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut in.
No, not at all. Another thing, see for left back, I think sometimes Greg Taylor operates better in a small pitch, and whenever Greg Taylor is with the ball, I think he can be a really influential player, especially whenever he's able to push up and can make some killer passes, which he has done away from home this season. If you remember back at Pataudry, when I think it was like a 1-0 and he floated a wee ball over the defence and somebody scored. I wouldn't be devastated if Taylor started the game tomorrow.
Sorry,
Can I
2
just say,
seconds.
though,
I'll be back
I
in a wee
hate
minute.
5 kickoffs. The only redeeming thing about this is it's away from home, so I'm not actually travelling to the game. If it was Parkhead 5:30 kickoff on Saturday,
No.
I wouldn't be happy. But anyway, for the majority of us, we're going to be watching it in the comfort of our own home, with no plans to go out in the evening. So I'll take it. I'll take it. I think it'll be a tough game. We could make it much easier for ourselves. Brendan, obviously, if he just judges on who's looking fit in training, and I don't know. But again, how do you drop Maida? So, but I think Jota, because it's such a tight pitch, I think Jota's trickery is so important for this game. So I would definitely start Jota on the left forward position. And yeah, I'd probably have to go for Maida and then Kuhn on the right. Midfield is obviously going to be Cal McGregor. Engels is going to start again, and Hatate, does Hatate start? Yeah, probably. Fran, who would you say is the biggest disappointment so far of the season? And not meaning to be harsh, I was just thinking of Bernardo. I don't think he's maybe grasped the opportunity as much as we had hoped for. But I don't mean to shite on him with that.
I don't know, because it's obviously he's out with injury now. But I felt when he was coming in at the start of the season, when he was starting, he was doing well. I think the midfield 5, if you include McCowan in that, we're all doing well. But I think before his injury, it didn't feel like he was maybe getting the minutes he deserved, what his performances deserved. So I kind of understand that one, Gav, but I think it would be harsh to say that about Bernardo, that he's been, because I don't think he has been a disappointment. I think he's maybe, I think you could argue he's maybe disappointed in his minutes, that he's maybe not got the minutes he's deserved. But I'm trying to look at, because I mean, it's considering the season we've had, it's maybe hard to look at any and say who has been a disappointment. I would maybe argue he does been a bit of disappointment, in the sense that I thought he would have done. I'm happy with what he's done. He's, since the turn of the year as well, he's, apart from obviously Hibs, but anybody could have came off against Hibs that day. I feel like the 3 players that got subbed at half time have carried the can a wee bit for that poor performance, and they've taken it a wee bit worse. Aye. Yeah, I think the 3 substitutions against Hibs, and Ida would obviously been one of them. I think they carried the can worse than other players that day. But since the turn of the year, I think Ida's been flying. Has stepped up anyway and scored big goals in the Champions League and things like that. But I would argue, if I'm going to say somebody that's maybe not lived up to expectation, I would go with Ida this season.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about Ida whenever I said that. I was just thinking about Hatate, and then I tailored a question. Oh, sorry, no Hatate, Bernardo. And I tailored a question about Bernardo when I've totally forgotten about Ida. See, before we wrap up for tonight, I had like a wee kind of like fun question. It maybe only take 5 minutes, but you can leave that till the end, Ross. Don't mean to interrupt your flow. You've been doing brilliant. By the way, you've not hosted in ages, but you've been doing fantastically for tonight. So well done, mate. Well done. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Well, listen, I've only got the agree to disagree to do, so we'll do that, and then we can finish off with, was it a question you said, Gavin?
Yeah, we kind of fun kind of question.
Aye, right, we'll do the agree to disagree, and then we'll do your question and wrap it up at that, and that'll probably take us over the 55 hours. That's fine. Anytime I host, it's usually 2.5 to 3 hours. I don't mind that. You don't mind it. Franny can deal with it on a Friday at a push, but I can see he's getting a little tired. But anyway, right, so we'll
Ross,
move on.
Take it for 3 hours. I didn't need to upload this to audio, because I didn't kind of crop it all up, so we're all right.
That's right.
We're all right. If it
John
kind of just keeps over 3 hours, but I'm sound. I've got an 8 hour.
So if it goes over the 3 hours, does it not go on YouTube? Is that?
No, it goes on YouTube, but then I
Oh,
can't.
right,
You
aye.
can't upload it to audio. You need to crop bits it up, and that
Who
it becomes
cares?
too
Eh?
big a file. Because it means I didn't
We've
do
had a good time. The guys watching live in the
Aye.
comments, they've had a good time. Who cares after that?
it.
Right, so we'll go into the agree to disagree, right? I'll come to yourself first, Franny. So Connor Ben will absolutely pulverise Eubank Jr.
I honestly didn't know with this one. The first time round, I would have said Connor Ben would have won because Eubank Jr. was stripping down a lot of weight and Connor Ben was bulking up. But Eubank Jr. just looks like he's got a wee bit in him. He clearly looks a bigger man again, and he looks to have a wee bit of needle and a wee bit of spite and things like that about what happened the previous camp and previous time round and stuff. I mean, for all the life of me, I hope Connor Ben wins. I do. But I would suppose I wouldn't strongly disagree. I've never took to Eubank Jr., mate. Never took. I think he's well above his station. He's clearly a good operator, but he's nowhere near the class that he thinks is. Connor Ben,
anytime he's tried to fight at world level, he's came up short.
Connor Ben, I think, could have probably got there, but I think the whole doping scandals just chucked him back ages. I don't know if he'll maybe reach where his potential should get him to. As I hope for the life of me that Connor Ben wins, but Eubank Jr.'s got a lot more to lose out of this, and a wee bit of me just because of what's happened for the previous one. I think Eubank might just edge it. So I would not strongly disagree, Ross, but I would maybe disagree with you. But hoping that I'm wrong.
Right, no, that's fine. Personally, I think. Well, I asked the question. I think that he will. I think he will do that. I think that Eubank Jr. I've always, I wouldn't say liked him, but I enjoy watching him fight. He's a sort of front foot fighter. He's exciting. He's not the technically the best you'll ever see by any stretch, but I just think that Connor Ben he's got a real chip on his shoulder. He's got that, like his dad, he's got that evil streak. Like Chris Eubank, or Eubank Jr., Chris Eubank Jr., he's in the boxing business to make money, and he's a good, he promotes himself really well.
Yeah.
Connor Ben just wants to hurt folk. And I think he'll hurt Eubank Jr. that night. But Gavin, yourself, same question. Connor Ben will absolutely pulverise Eubank Jr. Agree, disagree?
Look, I'll admit, I like my boxing, but I've not been following the build-up to this fight. I just remember the last time that they were meant to fight and the shape that Chris Eubank Jr. had went down to because he had to lose a lot of weight, for the catch weight for it. He looked unhealthy. And if it's anywhere similar to the last time, then he's probably going to leave himself vulnerable. And it's more difficult to lose that weight whenever you're older, which he is. He's in his 30s now. So if he's quite weakened from that weight loss, then I would imagine that Connor Ben would probably win. However, I think the better boxer is Chris Eubank Jr. from a technical perspective, but the athleticism and the energy will probably come from Connor Ben. Who do I prefer? I'm doing a Saunders here. Yes, Franny, I know. I prefer Chris Eubank Jr. I'm not a fan of him as such, but I just prefer him. I think he knows what he's good at. He's really good at publicising events, which what he did with the egg across the face. Thought that was a genius move because people like me who didn't care about the fight might be a wee bit curious. I wouldn't pay for it. I paid for the fight last weekend. That brilliant card, that brilliant undercard with B-ball and the fights below it. Amazing. I was so pleased to pay for that. But for this one, I won't pay for it. But I think Conor Ben will win. But I don't think it'll be a walkover.
So you sort of disagree, but not strongly.
Yes.
Yeah. By the way, Fran, did you not see any of that last week?
Nah, not a chance.
I
To watch
watched
back,
it. I put it on at 8:30 on the Sunday morning. Absolutely dying, by the way, but I put it on at 8:30.
I couldn't get
And I
my
watched
bed.
it. I watched it from 8:30 right through till it was done to the last fight. It was basically like I done a Saturday night on a Sunday morning, but didn't have a drink. Well, I had about 15 cans of Iron Brew, but that's by the by. But we'll move on to the next one. Who did I go to first in the last question? Was it you, Gavin?
Myself.
You. Right, I'll come to Gavin first. So, if we sell Rio Hatate this summer, Lennon Miller unequivocally cannot be his direct replacement.
Agree, totally agree. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the fact is that Hatate, we don't play with a number 10, but if he's the closest thing to a number 10, he's the kind of the unlocker, you know, of a defence. He can play killer passes, but I think Lennon Miller, from what I understand of him, he's more of a. I think he's better playing further back. You know, so I completely agree. We need somebody who's more in the Rio Hatate mold. And again, let you replace the like for like, but if Rio Hatate goes, we need to sign a kind of somebody who embodies a number 10 type of player, not just your typical box-to-box midfielder. You need a specialist if Rio Hatate leaves, because he offers you something that no other Celtic player has. So yeah, strongly agree.
I was trying to bring up a comment there, but it's not fucking working. I don't know what's happened. That's it. Who's James McAtee?
Plays
Man
Man
City
City.
player, I've not seen much of him,
no
but Man
chance.
City player, highly rated.
I
Right.
think they value him about 20 million. He's been linked to a loan move a couple of times to us, but I think they value him about 20 million.
Right.
So I didn't see that one happen. He's played the last couple of games.
I'm clearly not against it, but I don't know anything about the guy. But Franny, same to you. If we sell Rio Hatate this summer, Lennon Miller unequivocally cannot be his direct replacement.
I strongly agree as well, and I'm one that's been on this podcast that says I think we should sign Lennon Miller, but not to be that, because like Gavin said, for all intents and purposes, I think he's more a defensive minded player. I think he's got a lot of potential, Lennon Miller, as a player that I would like to see, and I think to go back to the sort of UN one, I think Celtic should always be looking to sign the best players in the league at times. But I would tend to go with guys of the Lennon Miller profile, if you like, and not a 25-year-old for Hibs, essentially, that's maybe had a good 8 months. But I'm certainly all for signing Lennon Miller. But to your question, no, I strongly agree. It cannot be for Hatate's replacement.
Right. See, I would be more inclined to go for a 25-year-old that's had a good 8 months than Lennon Miller. But listen, I've seen bits and pieces of Lennon Miller.
A good 2 years, but
aye, but I've seen bits and pieces of him. I don't see how he enhances Celtic or what he brings to Celtic. He's a good player in the Motherwell team. I just think he'd be.
I don't think he walks into a midfield. That's
no,
a good point.
I don't think he does.
And I think that I know they came for the same club. It's not because of that, but I feel like they're obviously slightly different players as well. But I just feel like he would come in and be another David Turnbull. He'd have a couple of years, and he probably wouldn't even be what we thought David Turnbull was going to be in his early part, because David Turnbull came into, for all intents and purposes, a pretty poor Celtic team, and he looked at a really good player. But the Celtic team we are now, David Turnbull couldn't get near it, and that's why he's not at the club now.
Yeah.
So anyway, right? So Franny, Celtic will once again break the transfer fee record this summer. I strongly agree, for what it's worth.
I agree. I think they might. I think they might have. I think they might push the ball out for one or two guys. I wouldn't be surprised if we. I say break it twice, but maybe go two above the Engels fee in the sense that we might sign somebody that costs more than Engels, but we might sign, for argument's sake, for talk's sake, we might sign a £15 million player, and we might sign laterally in the window a £12 million player, for argument's sake. So essentially, I think we could go 2 times above, like twice break our record, I feel like. But I agree. I think it might happen, especially if we go back in for Fitzgerald, if the rumours to be believed about his valuation. But I think he might be one that would push that out to that. Do I think we'll go to? I think the highest we may spend on somebody is about 15. I didn't really see us going much more than that because I don't see.
I don't know. That's 4 million over. But I mean, I think we'll break it. I don't think we'll fucking absolutely.
No, I don't think we'll go. I don't think we'll go silly. And I don't know if a wee bit of that's maybe just thought we broke a record last summer, and it should never be. We should never. I don't want. I think we should need to get to a sort of a situation where we question buying somebody because it's breaking a record. I think I'm not saying we should break a record every summer, but try and make the larger fees, if you like, more of the norm. Not necessarily norm. I'm not expecting £10 million every signing, but just try and make it where the fee is not necessarily a major part of the conversation. But I wonder if a wee bit is just because we're now. I mean, I don't think Celtic think this way, but it'd be quite funny just because we're now the unofficial champ. Like we now hold Rangers' fake trophy, being the most successful club in world football. Do you now think? Aye, no, totally agree. I just wonder if we might go, Kim, but we might just take that wee record to that we've got the record transfer deal. But I don't think I don't think they'll hink in these circles. They're going to just spend, if the player costs what it costs, that's why they'll pay it. I don't think they're doing it to necessarily have that record. But I wouldn't mind that being a wee thought process behind it.
Aye. Well, no, I know what you mean, but it pales into insignificance, really. But I totally get where you're coming from. But I would be delighted if Celtic signed another player that they felt had the potential, not the same position, obviously, but they felt that this person they were bringing in for whatever fee, even if it isn't 11, if it's 11 plus, if it's 10 million, 9 million, if they're bringing in a player that they feel the way they felt about Engels, which forced their hand to pay the money they did for them, I'd be delighted with that because, listen, it's not always going to work, but it seems to have worked with Engels. If it can work like that again, then it'll only benefit Celtic. But Gavin, again, same question. Celtic will break their transfer record this summer.
I don't strongly agree. If it happens, okay. At the same time, I don't think it's representative of outstanding quality. I don't mind if we buy 3-4 players in the summer between the 5 to 8 million mark. And for me, that doesn't spell danger. It doesn't spell a downgrade in our ambitions. It's just about if knowing what you're buying, and if you're doing your due diligence, if I can get the words out of my mouth. The 9 million for Ida and 11 million for Engels, I don't think there were bad decisions on the whole. I think we needed to do it for Ida and Engels. We'd scouted them and we kind of get pushed up and up and up, and we ended up going for it. No regrets. I don't think we need to smash our record to get better as a team. As long as we're pulling our resources together with the scouting department, whether it's we need to rely on Brendan Rodgers again, regrettably, but there's a lot of people who are meant to be contributing to doing the homework on recruitment. So whoever takes the credit for it, as long as it's the right player. But you can get a brilliant player for 5 million, 7 million, 8 million. It doesn't have to be over $1 million. So it might happen, and if it does happen, then great, because I'll probably take that as an indication that the player's going to be worth the salt. But at the same time, if the biggest we spend is like 8 million on a player, so be it. So be it. Don't really mind.
I agree with that. I've always been. There's Gillian confirming something there. Sorry, because somebody had asked how much Schlupp would cost. But that's how I did that when I brought the comment up. He cost nothing because he's out of contract. She's spot on.
Can I just say with the Schlupp thing, is he not on 70 grand right now with Palace?
Fees like that,
Aye. Well, this brings me on to the.
He's not over the hill.
No, he's absolutely not. 32. He's a specimen.
But do you think he gets a deal in the Premiership?
Well,
yeah.
Not money. Is this another agree disagree?
The final agree disagree.
Go.
I can't remember who I went to first, so I'll just go to Franny. It's not solely Jeffrey Schlupp, but it's in part. If we don't secure the services of Jeffrey Schlupp for next season, which obviously you guys were going to talk about there, it's the wages. That's the issue. I think if that didn't come into play, and we would have to pay him at least 35 grand, and then we're going to pay somebody 35 grand that's going to be essentially the understudy to Kieran Tierney. But as by the by, if we don't sign the services of Jeffrey Schlupp for next season, Celtic will run with Adam Montgomery as Tierney's understudy.
I disagree, but I don't strongly disagree in the sense that I think Rodgers will try and get maybe a Schlupp. If he can't get Schlupp, someone of that ilk in, maybe that age and profile where he is older, maybe just looking for that one last contract. As much as we didn't want guys just want Celtic on their CV, but he might be able to get an EPL guy that's not getting a look in down there if we don't if we don't get a Schlupp in. If we don't get like a Schlupp or a similar ilk in, I can see Rodgers going with a youth player. I just didn't see it being Montgomery. I mean, he's went out on loan. I think might be wrong, but I think one of the loans ended up with a serious injury. But I don't really think he's done much of note out in loan. So for me, but I'm not against the idea of trying to progress a youth player via that, because if we're all saying about Tierney not going to be able to play 60 games a season, so it maybe is an opportunity to try and bleed a youth player in, but it needs to be deserving of it. They can't just give a youth player a squad position just because we want to rest Tierney. It needs to be deserving of it.
Aye. Listen, Celtic are signing Tierney, but if we don't get Schlupp and Greg Taylor leaves, then for me, unless Rodgers is sure that there is, whether it be Montgomery or somebody else, if Rodgers is sure and confident and he's happy with that, then okay. But for me, I don't think there's anybody within that squad or team that Rodgers would be happy with. And if he has to run with Adam Montgomery or somebody else for the youth as Kieran Tierney's understudy, then I think that's an absolute dereliction of duty. I don't think we that should happen at all. I'm not saying Schlupp will happen. Taylor's not away. The likelihood is he will be away by all accounts. But Gavin, yourself, I'll just
sorry, Gav. I think the fact that he went for Schlupp in the January, and it seemed he was actively looking for a left back. I think that points to the fact that he doesn't trust anyone in the youths.
Definitely, that's a really, really good point, actually, Franny. Aye, definitely. For me, you look at Adam Montgomery, and I've heard people saying he could be the Ralston of the right. Ralston's all right. I think we all agree that if we could get better than Ralston, we're not going to get as good as Alistair Johnston. I would have to say, to dislodge him. But I think we still need a bit better than Anthony Ralston. How much better remains to be seen, because it's difficult, because you can only get somebody that's of a certain level where they're going to come in and go, right, okay, I know I'm not going to dislodge Alistair Johnston, but I'll get game time. I think if you're signing somebody as good as Alistair Johnston, then it's because you know Alistair Johnston's leaving. That's just the way it. Everybody wants to have equal quality 2 players in every position. But the fact is, if you have that, one of them's going to get passed off because they know they're too good to not be getting as much game time, and they'll leave. So for me, as much, I think we should get better than Anthony Ralston, and I don't think oh God forbid, no offence to the laddie, but we cannot run with Adam Montgomery as Kieran. Imagine Kieran Tierney getting injured and you had to go into I don't know, Bayern Munich away again with Adam Montgomery. Gavin, you're nodding there. I'll reiterate the question to you, but I think I know the answer. If we don't secure the services of Jeffrey Sloop for next season, Celtic will run with Adam Montgomery as Tierney's understudy.
Yeah, I strongly disagree. Montgomery's not good enough. So I guess the alternative would be, like, if we don't get Sloop, I think we all want to get Sloop, but it needs to meet. It needs to be something that he agrees upon, and something that the club would be willing to invest in him. So assuming that we cannot get the services of Sloop, no, there's no way we're going to call upon a youth player to be the understudy of Kieran Tierney. A lot of people are talking about the boy Penrice for Hearts. So that's a guy kind of under our noses, but equally there'll be plenty of his ilk in England in the Championship, maybe even in League One, and don't turn your nose down at League One players. I'm sure there's a lot of gems down there which we haven't discovered. So if it's not a Penrice up here, it will be a similar left back down in England, maybe plying their trade in the lower divisions, which will be an adequate replacement for Kieran Tierney. So there's no chance it's going to be Montgomery. Sadly, he's just not good enough. We'll have to buy somebody to be the understudy for Kieran Tierney, and let's hope we don't take a cheap option and just hope that Kieran Tierney is going to be fit. It needs to be somebody who's worth the salt. It really does, because we don't know how it's going to go with Kieran Tierney. We're full of optimism. We want it to work out well. We want the injuries to not be a feature of the remaining years in his career. But equally, we just don't know. If we're going to judge it on history, then we should take the cautious option and buy a left back who knows what he's doing. So that whenever, the thing is, next season, it might be the Champions League games that come around, and Tierney might be crocked. He might be crocked, and that was the games that we brought him in for. But he might be out, and we need the understudy, to I said before. And if the guy is shite, if we've taken the cheap option, then we're going to be raging. We're going to be raging at the manager for condoning it. We're going to be raging at the board for sanctioning that. We're going to be fighting amongst ourselves. Let's not sell ourselves short. Bring in Kieran Tierney, but let's think about the insurance protection below that. So that's what we need to do.
So I think the left back, obviously we're talking about Ralston, the drop off to Ralston. I think it might be easier to get a better quality left back as an understudy, because they might look at it and go, I've got a chance of maybe 30 games a season. It might be an easier sell to a better quality left back because of the injuries. No. Obviously we hope it's not that, but it might be easier to get a better quality understudy.
Aye, and I think as well, I've said this numerous times, Celtic asked a lot of Kieran Tierney in his early stages of his career. We broke his body down to where it is now, probably. So it would be nice, even if he isn't injured, to be able to rest him in the same way as Cal McGregor's getting to that stage of his career. I feel like I love Cal McGregor and he's your captain, and you don't want to drop your captain. But I think sometimes he needs a rest. He plays every minute, every game. It's getting to a stage now where, certainly this season, we're comfortable. You obviously want to keep minutes in his legs. Play him an hour each game. As long as we're okay in the game. Take him off the park because and keep him for the big cup games that we've got coming up, the Rangers games, because we're going to need him then to get us over the line and what we want to do, and that is obviously secure another treble. But listen, time will tell. We'll move. That's me done on the podcast for the night. Agree to disagree is done. I enjoyed that, by the way. Good wee debate there. But Gavin, we'll just finish off in your wee, I think it was question you said. We'll finish off on that, and that'll do us.
So it was just a wee kind of fun thing that I actually thought of like, during the podcast. And it was if you were to kind of name 7 Celtic players, and you're going to pick one for each of the current and preceding decades. So I was thinking starting off with the 60s, because I think if we're going back to the 50s, we're probably kind of scratching our head like who actually did play for Celtic in the 50s, and we might embarrass ourselves, including myself. Okay, I'm totally with you guys in this one. So I was thinking if we could all maybe agree on a player for Celtic for the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 90s, 2010s, and the current decade. So we're not building we're just building 7 particular players of that decade. That if you could make like a great 11, then they would be 7 of that 11. So
Right.
bit of fun, not to take it seriously. In the 60s, obviously, it's the Lisbon Lions, so you've got the cream of the crop. Jinky, of course, was voted the best Celtic player. So unless you're kind of thinking ahead and well, maybe I can get a good winger in one of the following decades, then maybe you wouldn't go for Jinky. But come to yourself, Franny, who would you go for the 60s?
Well, it's a toss-up between Jinky or Billy McNeil, but then surely whatever one you didn't pick out of them, you picked them in the 70s, so I'll just go for Jinky. He was voted the best ever Celt, so how can you not pick him?
Fair dues. Ross, would you take a different tact? Would you agree with Jinky?
I feel like I would probably agree with Franny just purely because you can pick Jinky for the 60s and then Billy McNeil, I think, still played in the 70s. So
he sure did. Now, okay, so we'll lock in Jinky for the 60s. Now, I was just thinking, and you guys can disagree because it can be like a majority vote here. I was thinking for the 70s that I would take Kenny Dalglish.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
But then still got
Billy
Larson.
McNeil on it. But it's not 1 to 11 really. It's just
right.
We're just
got you.
Picking 7.
Or just 7 players for each decade, right?
What we could do is we could pick 7 thinking about building an 11. So you could do that.
No, Gavin, that's too awkward at this time of night, man.
That's what my head was doing there, but I'm quite happy just to make it easier and just pick the best player.
If I had more time, I would date with like try and build a team.
Aye, listen, best player for the 60s is Jinky. I think you probably have to say that. Kenny Dalglish, probably, maybe Danny McGrain.
It's harsh not having Billy McNeil in it, but
we can pick Cameron Cutler-Vickers for this current decade. Maybe, or Virgil van Dijk for the previous one.
Mm-hmm.
I think you'd maybe need to lump for Dalglish. But it's kind of just, I'm going off. I mean, I'm doing the same with Jinky, obviously. Billy McNeil, just going off stories really, but Dalglish.
Dean McLaughlin's right in. He's not giving a fuck. That's quality. It's a good team.
Dalglish is the stories I've heard about him.
I would say Dalglish. Dalglish is my dad's hero My dad's a Ranger supporter, but he used to go to the games, the Celtic games, with some of his pals when he was younger. But Kenny Dalglish was his hero growing up. He used to write on post-it notes, Derek Muir loves Kenny Dalglish. So I'll just take Kenny Dalglish for that.
Right, okay, so 70s we'll lock in Kenny Dalglish. For the 80s, a lot of brilliant players for Celtic. Franny, any that come to mind in the 80s? You've got Danny McGrain, you've got Paul McStay, Tommy Burns. Even Bobby Lennox was probably still playing in the 80s.
Still playing in it.
Maybe.
Eh,
That's probably a toss-up between Burns and McStay, innit?
McGrain.
McGrain, I suppose.
Mo Johnston.
I mean, McAvenny as well. To be fair, McAvenny.
Oh, he wasn't in the same class as McStay.
Nah. I'm going to go Tommy Burns. Maybe a wee bit sentimental there.
But that's because you can pick McStay in the 90s.
This is true. This is very true.
I would go McStay, personally. But
What's on you, Gav?
I would definitely go McStay. Sorry, Franny. I would
he's
definitely go
pricks.
McStay. Right, so
he's
we've got Chinky
McStay
George,
in the team.
Kenny Dalglish. By the way, so far, the first three here for P. McLaughlin are right. And
Yeah.
for the 90s, what you're going to do, so if you don't take Larson in the 90s, you can take him in the noughties, but who do you exclude? Are you missing a good player in the noughties? So, Franny, you're burning calories right now thinking about this. In the 90s, who have you got? You've got Lubo, of course. You've got Larson.
I mean, you could argue one of the. Well, that's what I was going to say. The Cano, I know he's only this season, but the Cano, Duncan Cadet, we spoke about earlier.
Brian O'Neill.
Very true. Very true, mate.
Yogi Hughes, Jerry Crary, and that.
Stuart Kerr.
Wally Faulkner.
Mark Viduka.
Ryan McLaughlin.
By the way, what about Marco Viduka? But was Marco Viduka when he signed?
Was that O at the end? Was that just like interchangeable? We would drop it and add it on whenever it's.
I think he did. He not drop it when he left? I think it was when he went. I went away for a bit, 6 months. It was Marco Viduka, and then he came back as Mark. He must have went in administration.
We bought him as Marco, but we sold him as Mark.
He must have went in administration or something and came back as Mark Viduka.
Collins was up there. Collins was up there.
Oh, wow, man.
Jesus.
The first man at Celtic to exploit the Bosman rule.
First man to score with Predators, too.
I was reading about it. Fergus McCann tried to take Monaco to the European Court of Law, to take them to FIFA, because he said that Monaco, as a country, weren't a European country as such. And he was saying that because of that, then they're not allowed to exploit the Bosman rule, and therefore he wanted a fee. He was taking them to the courts all the way up until the early 2000s. Never got his money. But.
It's fun.
I'm going to go Collins, because I think Larson was better than the Naughties.
I'm leaning towards Lubo.
Lubo. What do we do if I go for Larson then? So you're going for Collins, you go for Lubo, I go for maybe Larson.
Fight it out to the death.
Collins was brilliant. Lubo was obviously great.
You could just do alphabetical order.
I second.
Okay, well,
I know. I was talking about the first name.
Collins or Lubo, who was the better player then? Collins or Lubo? Who was the more influential?
It's not even close. Lubo.
Well, Lubo was more influential.
I was thinking in the Juve game, with John Collins be able to do what Lubo done in that Juve game, and probably be Moravcik. So, right, okay.
He wore the tablet Ross as well, to be fair.
We'll go for Moravcik. in the 90s, and that means that we're all agreed on Larson for the noughties.
Aye, has to be aye. Can't
Oh,
go
no,
here,
like-
man.
Right.
I'm not sure.
So for the 2010s, I'm going to propose Virgil van Dijk for the 2010s, unless you want to go for somebody like Scott Brown. I don't know.
I would probably pump for. I'd probably go Scott Brown because I think I'm not trying to like Virgil van Dijk was a Rolls Royce it was, but I think he's obviously came better. But I think he's thought of more highly because of what he's achieved after Celtic than what he did at Celtic. So I'm going for Scott Brown. And
I
that's to
don't
take nothing away
see-
from Van Dijk.
I don't see a way where how I can't have Neil Lennon in it, but
It's a good
I think he
shout.
just made the 10s. But Virgil van Dijk was an enigma. It's difficult.
You can go for Julian if you want in the 2000s.
Oh,
Relax it
listen,
Maybe the big-
if we're going Virgil, I can't argue with it. Lennon was my hero. That's all it is based on.
So that's just got three different again.
Well, apparently Lennon retired in 2007. That's what we're hearing from Peter
There you
McLaughlin.
go.
Really?
Back again, Ross.
Oh, aye, because he would have been the manager. What about?
He signed bloody
Aye.
Virgil van Dijk.
So he did.
Yeah.
Talking pish. Right, just drop Larson and get Lennon in. Nah, that was embarrassing. I got my timelines mixed up there. That's a doozy. Aye, it's got to be Virgil then, aye.
I agree. Franny, I'm sorry.
What did you say,
but what-
Franny? Oh, Brown.
You want
Totally, man.
Bruni?
Can you hear us?
It was my AirPods have died. And so my sound
Oh.
had kind of went, it wasn't coming back, it wasn't coming back on the laptop there.
Virgil van Dijk. Right. What player are we taking for the current decade, the 2010s? So just to recap, okay, we've got Jinky Johnson on the right wing. We've got Kenny Dalglish up front. We've got McStay in the middle of the park. We've got Moravchik as a number 10. We've got Larson as well up front. Him and Kenny Dalglish, my God, that would be mouth-watering. At the back, you've got Virgil van
My
Dijk.
sound went again.
Your sound.
So 2020s. What he's taking?
He's not hearing us.
Oh, there we're back.
I can hear myself talking now.
I couldn't hear you. I couldn't hear you for seconds again. I can hear you again.
Aye, but I've got an echo now. Oh, it's away now.
Yeah.
It's all right. We're probably going to have to go with a goalie.
Casper?
Would have to be, But I mean, we're talking the 20s.
But I mean, if we're not building a team, can you back him, can't we?
Bit dies in.
That's what I was leaning towards. You can just play
Or
everywhere.
Engels.
I think I would go Maeda for picking this one. They need CCV because Virgil van Dijk's in.
Mm-hmm.
So you're basically picking the best player for Celtic after we shut the bed with 10 in a row.
Aye.
So the best 2 years under Anne and the 2 years under Rodgers right now, who's been the overwhelming? I would say the best player that
I could play Jota.
of Cameron Cutter-Vickers.
Kyogo.
Cameron Cutter-Vickers. Well, we've already got Kenny Dalg and Larson up front. So
I'm going Maeda.
Maeda.
I would have to go in Maeda. They
I'm
need
happy
defenders,
to be-
Gavin. They need defenders. Well, that attacking firepower.
Maeda.
We don't need roads where we're going.
Class, Paul. Class.
Maeda. Right, so you've got Jinky Johnson on the right, Maeda on the left. Can you imagine the looks that Henrik would
Jesus.
be giving to Maida whenever he puts in a shite ball. You've got McStay in the middle of the park, Moravchik number 10, Virgil van Dijk at the back, holding it all up. That sounds like a good seven-a-side team anyway. Aye.
It's a decent 7-a-side team.
By the way, that was good. I enjoyed that. Holy goalie, aye. Class, man. Brilliant. Aye, no, that was good. Enjoyed that. That's a decent team that would frighten the shite out of most teams, and that 7 would probably win the league. Just playing a 7 every week, they'd win the league. I don't think you can disagree with that. But, aye, that was good, Gavin, but that brings us, to the end of the podcast. Have you enjoyed your 3 hours and 25 minutes? Wow, that's a long time.
I think it's the longest pod I've been on.
Yay!
They actually host it longer than Gav because it's what he's known for, is having a good.
What? I need to outdo you then the next time I'm hosting.
I mean, the gauntlet has been thrown.
But, keep them over 3 hours all you want. It saves me a wee job uploading the audio.
I know. Listen, I hope that the viewers haven't ended up bored or that. I've enjoyed it. I said, well, there's Jill and she's loved it, so that's good. The game is today now. It actually is, I think. Yep, it is. Yep. Listen, I've enjoyed it. It's been a good laugh. I've not hosted for ages, so I've made up for lost time, I think. But I'll certainly be hosting again in the near future. Hopefully it's a Monday night and we can get it done in a wee hour. But I enjoy it. Listen, I plan it and then it's like, oh, that'll be like an hour and a half. And then you just go off in tangents and then you bring up comments and before you know it, just snowballs. But I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm glad glad the viewers have. Again, hit the like button if you are saying you've liked it. So hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. And all that's left for me to say is stay well, keep safe. Hail, hail. Thanks, guys.